Lock the doors. Question is that motion 250 moved by Senator Askew on behalf of Senator Bragg be agreed to. Ayes passed to the right of the chair, noes to the left. Is this a point of order? Senator Thorpe, resume your seat. Senator Thorpe, resume your seat. This matter has been considered before. Dress is a matter for individual senators' conscience, and the chamber attendants have verified that this is a senator. If Senator Askew is comfortable in counting that senator, then otherwise she can notify the matter to me. This matter has been considered before. Senator Thorpe. Senator Faruqi.
President, a dress code might be a choice of the senators, but racism should not be the choice of the Senate. This is a racist senator displaying blatant racism and Islamophobia, President, and someone should pull her up on that.
Senator Faruqi.
And it is you in the chair. You should be pulling her up on that.
Resume your seat. Senator Payman, on the same issue, I take it.
What else would I be talking about, Deputy President? Because if this is about the dress code, she is disrespecting a faith. She is disrespecting the Muslims out there, Muslim Australians. It's absolutely unconstitutional. This needs to be dealt with immediately before we proceed. It's disgraceful.
Senator Payman, resume your seat. Senator Payman, resume your seat. Your position has been made clear. This is a matter for the entire Senate chamber. I have made the previous rulings of this Senate clear. If the Senate wants to change that ruling, that is a matter for the entire chamber, not for me. Senator Whish-Wilson, if this is on the same matter, I'm not going to entertain any more.
Order that's different, Deputy President.
Senator Whish-Wilson.
Senator Hanson is using a prop in the Senate, and it's a dangerous prop. Dangerous
Senator
to this country,
Whish-Wilson.
but I ask that you rule on her bringing a prop into the Senate.
Senator,
it is not her normal dress code, Deputy President. It is clearly a prop to make a political statement. If I was to wear a Greens T-shirt in here, or a Fremantle Dockers shirt or
Senator
whatever, I would get shown the door.
Resume your seat. This matter has been ruled on before. Senator Thorpe, resume your seat. Senator Thorpe, resume your seat. Senator Faruqi, resume your seat. Senator Faruqi, Senator Faruqi, resume your seat. Senator Faruqi, resume your seat. Senator Shoebridge, resume. Senator Waters, resume your seat. No, Senator Shoebridge, resume your seat. Senator Shoebridge, I will complete this division. Then, if a senator wishes to dissent from my ruling, they are entitled to. You cannot dissent now. We need to complete the division. We will complete the division, and then you may move dissent in the chair. There has been a request to cancel the division. There has been a request to cancel the division. Does anyone object to cancelling the division? We'll cancel the division. No, it's cancelled. If it is... The doors have been locked. The division will need to be finalised. Would senators please resume their seats? Senator Wong. My understanding and the advice I have is the division needs to be completed. If someone wants to dissent at that point with my ruling, they can. I am going to put the question. The question is that the motion, as moved by Senator Bragg, be agreed to. Ayes will pass to the right of the chair, noes to the left. I will give senators a few moments to resume their seats, as I assume, Senator Wong, you do not wish to be on this side, or Senator Chisholm. We are attempting to finish the division, and then you may dissent in the chair's ruling. Senator Thorpe, sit down. Ayes will pass. Senator Thorpe. Senator Thorpe. Senator Thorpe, you do not have the call. Senator Thorpe, you do not have the call. Ayes will pass to the right of the chair, noes to the left. I appoint Senator Askew, teller for the ayes, Senator Darmanin, teller for the noes. Senator Wong, the division is being counted. Senator Wong, I think we need to complete the division and then order. The doors have been locked, we can't. Well, the doors should not have been unlocked if they were. Order! Senator Thorpe, you cannot leave your chair. Sorry? If someone asks, we can put it again. Oh. The result of division is ayes 37, noes 20. The question is resolved in the affirmative. Senator Waters.
Deputy President, I would like to request that you review your earlier ruling because clearly what has happened today is not a genuine demonstration of faith. In fact, it is the middle finger to people of faith. It is extremely racist and unsafe, and I would like you to reconsider your earlier ruling that it is not appropriate in this Senate to draw attention to a religion that this person does not even subscribe to. It is an insult and it must be against the standing orders. I would like you to review your earlier ruling.
Senator Waters, I will absolutely review it, and I will also refer it to the President. I'm happy to step out of the chair for the President.
Senator Wong, were you seeking the call?
Thank you. President, I rise to ask that you reflect the ruling of Senator Parry when in the President's chair in relation to a similar stunt by this senator in this place. And I would remind those who may not have been here of what the then Leader of the Government, Senator Brandis, said at the time. He says to Senator Hanson, "Senator, I'm not going to pretend to ignore the stunt you have tried to pull today by arriving in the chamber dressed in a burqa when we all know you are not an adherent of the Islamic faith. I would caution and counsel you with respect to be very, very careful of the offence you may do to the religious sensibilities of other Australians. We do have many Australians in this country who are adherents of the Islamic faith, and the great majority are law-abiding Australians, good Australians, Senator Hanson, and it is absolutely consistent with being a decent Australian and being a strict and adherent Muslim. So, Senator Hanson, I would say this to you, and this is me now, not Senator Brandis, with whose remarks I concur, and it was one of the occasions in this chamber where the then opposition backed the government of the day to stand against this sort of stunt, And what I would say to you, President, is that Senator Hanson, all of us in this place, have a great privilege in coming into this chamber, a great privilege. And we represent, in our states, people of every faith, all backgrounds, and we should do so decently. And what we should not do in this place, whatever views we may have on policy, is to be this disrespectful of the chamber and of people of faith. Whatever our own beliefs may be, the sort of disrespect that you are engaging in now is not worthy of a member of the Australian Senate, and it should not be allowed to stand. So I ask President, that you take advice from the clerk, and I'd refer you to the ruling of Senator Parry when he was the President in relation to precisely the same issue that we are seeing today.
Senator Faruqi, what I intend to do is hear from Senator Ruston as the opposition spokesperson, and then I'm going to indicate to the chamber what Senator Parry ruled. So, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. So, there are...
Senator Faruqi, please resume your seat. I've indicated to the chamber what I intend to do. What the chamber does after that is entirely up to the chamber, but I've indicated to the chamber what I intend to do, so please resume your seat. That's entirely up to the chamber. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, President. Well, I think all of us in this place probably need to remember that the respect of this chamber is incumbent on every single one of us. And there are ways that you can reflect and express yourself in this chamber without going to the extent that we have seen today. So whilst I respect the very strongly held views of many people in this chamber, and many of them differ, and many people have very strong views that are opposed to other people's very strong views, but the one thing that we must always do in this place is respect others. And so I would respectfully suggest to Senator Hanson that this is not the way that you should be addressing this chamber. This is not a respectful way to address other people. And whilst I haven't had, in the time frame, the opportunity to reflect on the decision of Senator Parry when he was in the chair, all the comments that were made by Senator Brandis when he was the leader of the government in this place. I do recall that the foundation of everything that was said by Senator Parry and by Minister Brandis at the time was about respecting this institution and respecting the views of others, and not to disrespect them by coming in and performing stunts which have no other purpose than to do that. So I think maybe today we should all reflect on respect for each other in this place.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. I am advised that this has occurred in the past, and Senator Parry was the President at the time, and what he ruled was that using a religious icon or religious dress or anything to do with a religion as a prop and not in the proper way that it is expected to be used was disrespectful to the Parliament. At that time, he asked Senator Hanson to either remove the item of clothing that she's wearing or risk suspension. I intend to uphold the ruling of Senator Parry and ask Senator Hanson to remove herself from the chamber and remove the clothing and come back dressed appropriately, or risk suspension, and she certainly will not be heard if she doesn't remove herself from the chamber. Thank you, Senators. I am advised that because we are on a point, Senator Hanson, you will not be heard. Senator Hanson, you will not be heard. Senator Hanson, you will not be heard. I've repeated the order that Senator Parry gave, and I understand. Senator Hanson, I'm going to call on the Leader of Government. Yep.
I would ask that we move to the next item of business, President.
Yes. I believe we're up to General Business 246. Senator Askew.
President, I understand that...
just a moment. Senator Thorpe, you're not helping the matter. You're not. So I would ask you to restrain yourself. Senator Thorpe, I've issued the order. Senator Hanson, if you don't remove yourself, I'm sorry, Senator Askew, from the chamber, I'm going to name you. I'm going to call on Minister Wong now.
I move, pursuant to Standing Order 203, I move that Senator Hanson be suspended from the sitting of the Senate until she complies with the President's direction.
So the question is that the motion is moved by Senator Wong be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Aye. Against? I believe the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. So we're going to go back to business. I have called that for the ayes. I indicated to the chamber, consistent with Senator Parry's ruling, that I would not recognise Senator Hanson while she remained in the chamber in something that has been deemed a prop. So the vote was for the ayes, and I've called that. Senator Askew. Senator Roberts. Senator Roberts, I've called the vote. So that's the end of the matter. We have Senator Roberts, please resume your seat. We have moved on. Senator Parry's order is very clear and I've upheld that. And now Senator Hanson has to remove herself from the chamber. Senator Thorpe, the interjections are really unhelpful. I would like to get on with the business of the Senate. Order! 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 Senator Thorpe, order. Senator Shoebridge, I couldn't be any clearer, and that the Senate has just moved to sanction Senator Hanson. I'll give you a few seconds, Senator Shoebridge. Make it short and very clear.
It's been named, and she cannot remain in here while the Senate proceeds. I would ask you to seek advice on a short suspension of the chamber so as that can be achieved.
Thank you. I would hope, I'm sorry, Senator Wong, I will come to you. I would hope that all of us in here can uphold with respect the business of the chamber. The Senator's made its view clear. We should not have to move to suspending. I should not have to be entertaining interjections. If I want everyone to behave in a respectful way, I'm going to give the call to Senator Wong. The suggestion of a suspension is something I'm really loath to do, Senator Shoebridge. I would hope that senators in here can behave respectfully, and if you're called, you're called. But no, Senator Tyrrell, sit down. Senator Wong. Senator Tyrrell, you do not have the call. Minister Wong.
President, this chamber doesn't operate on people being physically removed. This chamber operates on senators who are elected by the people, respecting the Constitution of Australia and the standing orders of this chamber. And it says something, Senator Hanson, if you refuse to act in a manner inconsistent with the standing orders of this chamber. So for all of your talk about respecting institutions, democracy, the Australian people, it is you who today are disregarding this Parliament, our Constitution and the standing orders that flow from that the chamber has agreed with. I would propose that the chamber be suspended until the ringing of the bells.
So the question is that the proposal as put by Senator Wong be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Against? I believe the ayes have it. Please suspend till the ringing of the bells. We just sit. Senators, earlier today, the Senate voted to suspend Senator Hanson for the remainder of the sitting. The clerk and I have met with Senator Hanson and she understands that message from the Senate chamber. So I think we're up to housekeeping. So, yeah. Business 246, and I believe that Senator Brockman is happy to.
Senator Askew, are you seeking the call?
I am. On behalf of Senator Henderson, can I withdraw General Business 246, please?
I think I'd already noted that one was withdrawn.
Next
but that's
one. You want
fine.
the next
Senator
one?
Askew and Senator Askew.
251. So, on behalf of Senator Bragg, I ask that General Business Notice of Motion number 251 be taken as a formal motion.
With there being no objection, it's taken as formal. Senator Askew.
I move the motion.
The question is this motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Against say no. The ayes have it. Division required. Ring the bells for 4 minutes. Lock the doors. The question is that motion 251, moved by Senator Askew, be agreed to. Ayes will pass to the right of the chair, noes to the left. I appoint Senator Askew teller for the ayes and Senator Darmanin teller for the noes. The result of the division is ayes 37, noes 21. The question is resolved in the affirmative. And that ends formal business, I'm sure to the great relief of many of us. I'll just allow senators to resume their seats. Slow down. Senator Dean Smith has submitted a proposal under Standing Order 75 today, as shown at item 12 on today's order of business. Is consideration of the proposal supported? Being supported with the concurrence of the Senate, the clerks will set the clocks in line with the informal arrangements made by the whips, and I call Senator Smith.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Australians deserve honesty and transparency from their government about the true cost of its reckless energy plan, and they are not getting it. The latest red flag is in the Australian Energy Council's report released just on the 17th of November, which reveals how concerned the energy sector is with Labor's faltering energy transition. The report says the AEC members have become increasingly concerned about the rising pressures on affordability and feel there needs to be a more honest and transparent public narrative about the cost of the transition. Instead of having an honest dialogue with Australians, now part-time Energy Minister Chris Bowen is keeping them in the dark while driving up their power bills and risking network security and reliability. It's time for Labor to stop the insults and spin and answer one simple question. When will power prices come down under Labor like they promised? The energy sector attitudes revealed in the Australian Energy Council report are damning. The report notes most CEOs expect energy prices to rise in coming years due to sustained upward pressure. These CEOs are sounding the alarm on Minister Bowen's misguided plan, with one stating network cost is only going to go up and go up by increasing levels, and the Australian consumer is not even really wise to that yet because they haven't seen the worst of it. Just think about that. Energy sector leaders are saying themselves that network costs are going up, going up, going up, and who are the last people in the country to know about that? Energy consumers, families and businesses. Australian households, businesses and industry deserve a policy that provides affordable energy and seeks to deliver responsible emissions reductions. Labor has failed on both measures while hiding the true cost of their policy from the public. Families are struggling to make ends meet, small businesses are being forced to close their doors, regional Australians are paying the price for poor planning, and industry is being pushed offshore. For Australian households, power bills are up by almost 40%. Where Labor promised a $275 cut to power bills, Australians today are paying around $1,300 more. More than 200,000 families, think about that, more than 200,000 families across Australia are now on financial hardship plans with their electricity providers, an increase of 50% since mid-2022. The Australian Energy Regulator has reported that both the number of customers in debt and the size of the average debt have increased in the last 12 months. Energy leaders have raised concerns over the unintended consequences of leaving vulnerable people behind, with one energy leader saying, "The bottom line is we're going to make a large segment of the population more vulnerable again with higher electricity prices." For small business, the story is the same. For small businesses, electricity bills have increased by as much as 80%. COSBOA, the Peak Industry Association for Small Businesses, reports that 1 in 3 small businesses are struggling to pay their electricity and gas bills. It's no surprise that under the Albanese government, we have witnessed the insolvency of almost 40,000 businesses. And under Labor, Australian industry is being hollowed out. 1,911 manufacturers have closed their doors since the Albanese government came to power. As one contributor to the AEC report observed, Australian industry will not survive without access to affordable energy. For these Australians, prices are soaring while Australia's emissions are flatlining. Despite $75 billion in extra climate spending, the equivalent of $7,000 extra dollars per household, national emissions are virtually unchanged under Labor. Recent figures show that all of this economic pain, emissions have barely moved, falling just 0.7%. Think about that. Emissions have fallen just 0.7% under Labor. This is a reckless government setting targets they cannot meet at a cost Australians can't afford. The Coalition's plan is to deliver affordable power and responsible emissions reductions. It's a practical pathway to affordable power and lower emissions. It's not Labor's recipe of soaring prices and targets that cannot be met.
Senator Darling.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. Well, Senator Smith does raise concerns about affordability and transparency in the transition, and fair enough. We should be discussing these things. So let's begin with some honesty and some facts about the transition. Under those opposite, Australia was transitioning to energy poverty. as have been recorded lately and stated by the Prime Minister, we have seen 24 of Australia's 28 coal-fired power plants closed while the Coalition was in government. 24 of 28, not because of Labor, not because of renewables, but because ageing plants failed and those opposite had no plan to replace them. Let's turn to more facts and evidence. The International Energy Agency has reported that countries moving faster to net zero will see lower household bills over time. OECD comparisons show Australian electricity bills sit in the middle of the pack once you adjust for income. And last week we learned that the Climate Council of Australia stated that without renewables, generation costs will be up to 50% higher than they are today. Transparency, evidence, honesty, discussion about affordability. That's what this debate's about, but they're inconvenient facts for some. The Climate Council's analysis showed that wholesale renewable power has averaged $72 a megawatt hour, compared to $129 a megawatt hour from coal and gas, almost twice the price. Doesn't matter who you speak to, Australia's top energy bodies, the AER, AEMO, AEMC, CSIRO, they all agree that renewables backed by storage are the cheapest and most reliable form of new electricity. New electricity, because we need to continue to build supply of generation as those ageing coal fleets do retire as they did, 24 of 28 under the Coalition. That's the hard data. The AEMC warns that delaying renewable energy generation and transmission will put upward pressure on residential costs. And wholesale prices are already falling, down by a third in the last quarter. And we want those reductions flowing into retail bills as soon as possible. That is why the Albanese government is delivering a responsible energy plan that creates jobs, provides business certainty and lowers emissions. It's also why we've acted 3 times to deliver energy bill relief, capped gas prices and invested in cheaper renewables. Every step opposed by those opposite. Our plan is clear: renewables backed by gas, batteries and hydro, with targets that lower emissions and create jobs. And the transition is accelerating. Renewables have supplied half of the national electricity market just last month. Half of the market from renewables. Last year alone, 5 gigawatts of new solar, wind, battery and gas capacity entered the grid. That's the largest amount of new capacity in the grid since 1998. We've approved 111 renewable and related projects, enough to power 13 million homes. And 1 in 3 households now have rooftop solar, more than 4 million installations across the country. And since July, Australians have installed 120,000 household batteries, lifting national storage capacity by 50%. EV sales have hit 13% of all new sales this year. And we're making solar fairer with 3 hours of free daytime power for customers who can shift their energy use. Again, compared to those opposite, a decade in power, 24 coal stations closed and no replacement. No transition plan, no bill relief. And while Labor has delivered support for households and small business, the Coalition opposed every single one of them. Every bill spike, every breakdown, every moment of grid instability is part of their legacy. Doing nothing now, their current plan, has consequences. The Clean Energy Council found households could pay $449 more by 2030 if renewable build-out slows, and over $600 more if a major coal generator fails unexpectedly. More than 90% of coal plants will retire over the next decade. The only question left is whether Australia replaces them with the cheapest option or the most expensive option. And Tasmania knows where the opportunity lies. With our hydro assets, storage, critical minerals mean jobs, security and investment for Australia and for our regions.
Senator Hodgins-May.
The Australian Energy Council's latest report says its members want a more honest and transparent narrative about the cost of the transition. Well, let's be honest and transparent. The Energy Council doesn't work for consumers. It works for the companies who profit when the transition slows down. And of course these companies are concerned about the speed of the transition, Because every year we delay is another year that they can squeeze profits out of coal and gas. But slowing down the transition doesn't make power cheaper. It destroys our economy, it trashes our planet and locks households into expensive gas in a world that is rapidly moving on. Renewable energy is the future. Get with the program or get out of the way. So let me bust some myths. Myth: renewables are expensive. Fact: every credible body, the CSIRO, AEMO, Climate Council, say wind and solar are now the cheapest form of new electricity generation in Australia, by a mile. Wind and solar cost a fraction of new coal and gas, a fraction. The Clean Energy Council's latest analysis shows renewables are the cheapest path to lower bills, full stop. Myth: dependence on gas keeps energy prices stable. Fact: gas is a major driver of high bills. When global prices jump, Australian households feel it. Unlike gas, renewables don't link our domestic market to volatile international prices. Since Australia began exporting LNG, domestic gas prices have tripled. They have tripled, and power prices have doubled. Myth: the grid can't handle renewables. Fact: the grid can't handle ageing coal plants falling over. Renewables are predictable. The failures of ageing coal and gas are not. AEMO has been crystal clear. The fastest way to a reliable grid is more wind, more solar and more storage. And while we're busting some myths, let's talk about the Coalition. Their abandonment of net zero is frankly embarrassing, and it is a betrayal of everyday Australians who want cheaper bills and a clean energy future. They are trying to outdo Labor in defending fossil fuel corporations and locking us into decades of higher energy costs. Farmers don't want that. Households don't want that. Industry doesn't want that. Australians do not want that. You want transparency and truth. Well, here it is. Renewables are the cheapest, cleanest, most reliable path forward. The only thing standing in the way of that clean energy transition is a political class that is just too timid, too afraid to embrace that renewable energy transition, and an industry hoping like hell that we don't.
Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. The government's continuing excuses for why their net zero agenda is not delivering lower power prices for the Australian people is wearing thin. It's wearing thin with the Australian people because constantly they get lectured that renewables are the cheapest form of power, that the government's investing in the lowest cost, that you'll get a $275 reduction in your power bill, and then your power bill turns up and they keep going up and up and up. And now we have some of the highest electricity prices in the world, despite having some of the best energy resources in the world, and there's no coherent explanation for why this is the case. The only thing now that the government resorts to is to effectively tell the Australian people not to believe your lying eyes. You can see your power bill go up every quarter. You can see our manufacturing industry being shipped offshore day after day, and yet the government continues to gaslight you, which is ironic because I don't like gas, but they continue to gaslight you to say that no, what we are doing is actually the cheapest way of delivering energy. It's exactly not what the government's plan is at all. And the government continues now, or those who do support net zero, continue to be completely dishonest with the Australian people. And that is what this motion calls for. This motion calls for an honest debate about how much this so-called transition, this so-called net zero transition will cost the Australian people. Because I just heard there from the previous speaker that the CSIRO says that the renewables are the cheapest. They say not that at all. Their latest report says that in 2024, that is their latest numbers, that coal is $111 a megawatt hour and a solar, wind and firm system is $116 a megawatt hour. They're the numbers. Now, in my maths, when I was at school, 111 is less than 116. So coal is the cheapest form of power. And note that I use the verb is. It's a present tense. In the present tense, in the present world, coal is the cheapest form of power, according to the CSIRO. According to the CSIRO. Now, I don't think we should just leave it to the likes of the CSIRO because they've got things so wrong so often. So as AEMO, we hear these, let's listen to the Australian Energy Market Operator. They've got it wrong time and time again. I don't want to listen to the people who've got it wrong all the time. I want to listen to the workers out there that have lost their jobs in the nickel industry, in the plastics industry, in the urea industry that have all been shipped overseas since we started this crazy agenda. When are we going to listen to them? I want to listen to the Australian families who can't afford to pay their bills anymore, not just because their electricity bills are going up, but also because the cost of electricity flows through to the cost of everything. The Page Research Centre did a report earlier this year which showed that the increased costs of electricity in this country have also added $3,400 to the budgets of Australians through the extra costs of energy to produce groceries, to move yourself around this country. It is crippling our economy, this agenda that is putting the targeting of emissions reduction above all other goals. Now, I've always supported a reasonable reduction in our emissions, but I don't support it at the cost of destroying our economy, at the cost sometimes of even destroying our environment. This net zero agenda is now destroying koala habitats left, right and centre around our country, presumably and seemingly with no concern from those pursuing the agenda. It is just not working for the Australian people. Now, in terms of what the overall cost is, we know that from a group called Net Zero Australia, a consortium of universities, University of Melbourne, Princeton University, and the University of Queensland, they did an estimate of how much it's going to cost to get to net zero. And this is the media release that was released by the University of Melbourne. And I quote, "The cost of the transition is estimated at around $7 to $9 trillion invested in domestic energy and industrial infrastructure by 2060, around 6 times the business as usual case. It's a business as usual amount, 6 times. And how much is $7 to $9 trillion? Well, that's more than $250,000 for every Australian. Has there been an honest debate from those pushing net zero? Is it worth every Australian, on average, having to lose resources equivalent to $250,000 per person in this country? 6 times what it would cost to simply deliver energy like we have before. These are from people who support net zero. They're not against it. All these universities support it. And that's the estimate they put on. But we haven't had any economic modelling from the government about their targets and how much that's going to cost the Australian people. This is costing. Net zero is costing Australians an arm and a leg, and it's about time we have a common sense debate about it and a more reasonable option for the Australian people.
Senator Cox.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. I rise because, once again, we're in a position where the Coalition want to try and lecture Australians about affordability and honesty in the energy transition, as if they have an ounce of credibility left on this topic, as they claim to come in here with a straight face and say that there needs to be a much more honest conversation about the cost of transition. Well, let's talk about that honesty, shall we? And let's talk about the transparency of that. And let's talk about who really put Australians in this position. Because the truth on that matter is very, very simple, Acting Deputy President. The biggest cost to our energy system, and the ones that households keep paying for, is a decade of denial, a decade of delay, a decade of dysfunction delivered by those opposite. For 10 long years, the Coalition ignored experts, it ignored industry, it ignored the science, and it ignored absolutely every warning about clinging to ageing coal-fired power stations, while the rest of the world is moving on. And the previous speaker, Senator Canavan, loves to have his fantasies about coal, and they left Australia dangerously overexposed to those global energy shocks. They left our grid old, fragile and expensive to run. They left us unprepared, and Australians have been paying the price ever since this has been happening. And now, after all that damage, all the damage that was caused, the Coalition have not just walked away from net zero altogether, they've run away from it. The big lashing tail over there of the Coalition, the Nats, have told the Liberal Party, leave net zero and run in the opposite direction away from that. And they didn't just fail to deliver on a transition, they've abandoned even pretending to try now, which is absolute lunacy. Now, they're the only major political force in the country arguing that Australia should turn its back on economic opportunities. And I see senators from One Nation who'll get up and have a crack in a minute on the cheaper power and the global investment that net zero brings. This is not a plan. I mean, it's written on the back of an envelope or a napkin somewhere. That's what they've presented to the Australian public. And now the coalition wants to posture as the champions of honesty on power bills. Let me be absolutely crystal clear. Every bill spike, every coal breakdown and every bit of energy pain that Australians still feel traces back to their decade of climate infighting. 22 policies, I think it was, Senator O'Sullivan, and the Australian Energy Council, representing those companies that run the power system, could not be clearer. And they say that the least cost, the lowest impact pathway is a grid dominated by renewables, firmed with batteries, gas and pumped hydro. And they say there is broad alignment across industry, contrary to what you hear over there from that side of the chamber, that there is actually broad alignment that industry want that energy mix that is required to ensure that surety for Australians. And they say that Australia's transition is irreversible. There's no turning back. So this fantasy that's been built up over there in a little puff of smoke, and they say replacing ageing coal with renewable energy is not costless, but is still much cheaper in the long run than investing in just more coal. There is no appetite for investment to keep coal-fired power stations. That is the clear message. And they say that governments must provide certainty and stability in order to keep energy affordable. That certainty is exactly what the coalition has destroyed when they were in power. Now, there are a couple of points I wanted to make. Senator Dowling made some wonderful, gave you all the statistics that you need, but the wholesale electricity prices fell by 1/3 last quarter, and we want to see this flowing through to retail bills soon. The energy experts are united. AEMO says that renewable energy firmed with storage and backed by gas is the lowest way to cost, or lowest cost for power to Australia. The AEMC warns that delaying renewable generation and transmission will put upward pressure on those electricity costs. Now, we need to ensure that renewables push prices down in the future, and policy chaos delivered by those opposite will only push prices up.
Senator Bell.
You. One Nation has been clear. The cost of Labor and Liberals' net zero experiment has been too great for Australian families and for Australian jobs. Now, even the peak body for big energy companies, the Australian Energy Council, is admitting this and stating we need a more honest and transparent public conversation about the real cost of this net zero madness. This should be ringing alarm bells in this place. For years, families, farmers, manufacturers have been told to swallow the rapid renewables rush and trust that cheaper power would magically follow, and it has not. The energy company's own CEOs now admit prices are set to keep climbing as billions are poured into renewables, more transition lines and more bureaucracy. But Australians do not see a transition, they see electricity bill shock. Bills are in the thousands before they even turn on the heater for winter or the aircon for summer. Families are struggling, pensioners are being forgotten and small businesses are being smashed. For a cafe in the Illawarra, it is a choice between keeping the lights on or making a staff cut. For families in the Hunter and many families across Australia, this is a choice between groceries, fuel or their children's sporting fees. Australia's largest aluminium smelter is now asking whether it can keep the doors open beyond 2028 because it cannot lock in affordable energy. This is 1,000 jobs and livelihoods on the line. These are real people. If the company producing such a big share of our aluminium can no longer make the numbers work, the problem isn't Tomago, the problem is net zero. And what One Nation has been saying for years is simple. You cannot run our country on slogans and wishful thinking. Energy policy should begin with 3 non-negotiables. It needs to keep the lights on, keep the bills down and keep Australian jobs here. And we will keep reminding this place. It is long past time this parliament stopped selling fairy tales and started telling Australians the truth.
Senator Brockman.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I too rise to speak on this MPI, moved by my friend and colleague from Western Australia, Senator Smith. And it really does bell the cat when those opposite and their fellow travellers in the green stand up and say over and over and over again that renewable energy are the cheapest form of power. Meanwhile, every month, when people, when individuals, when businesses receive their energy bills, they see prices going up and up and up. And now we see from the supposed experts, those opposite claim to follow, that these power price increases could go on for at least a decade. But they've been saying that this transition was going to deliver cheaper power for years. Now we've got to wait another decade. How can you trust this government? And let me give 3 examples from WA, Senator Smith, and you'll be very interested in these examples. And I've got the evidence here, and I've met with these businesses just in the last week. Firstly, a small supermarket in the suburb of Maddington. He's got his bills, he's provided me with their bills, an increase of 20% off-peak and 36% on-peak. Think about that. That is going to the grocery prices of every West Australian who shops in that store. And every West Australian who shops in all those stores across WA who are seeing those same ratcheting up of power prices. 20% off-peak, 36% increase on their peak electricity prices in a small supermarket in the suburb of Maddington in Western Australia. That is adding to every West Australian's cost of living. Let me give you a second example, and this one is in regional WA, a food processor, not a huge food processor by any stretch of the imagination. Their power bills have gone up, and they are a high energy user, but their power bills have gone up from just over $2,000 a day to $4,300 per day. From just over $2,000 to $4,500 per day. Now think about that, what that is doing to the cost of their product. It's extraordinary. And those opposites say, oh, but renewables are the cheapest form of power. Well, wait a sec, we've had renewables as an increasing part of the grid for at least the last 20 years. Every year for the last 20 years, we've had more renewables than the year before. And those opposite and their fellow travellers in the Greens have said, oh, they're the cheapest form of power. And yet every year we've seen prices go up. And here we have it, 36% increase in peak rate of power. And I'll give you a third example, a much smaller example. A potato producer in the southwest of Western Australia who I was talking to last week. He runs irrigation off electricity and he runs a small cool room. His power bills have gone up $20,000 over the course of a year. $20,000 for a small family food producer in the southwest of Western Australia. Now you think about what that is doing, you think about the combined impact of those 3 businesses I have just talked about. All of them having an increasing exposure to solar and wind and batteries to a lesser degree, and yet their power prices have gone up by 36%, by $20,000 a year, and by well over $2,000 per day in each of those 3 examples. This is what Labor's ideological drive to net zero is doing to the Australian economy. This is what it is doing to small, medium-sized businesses in Western Australia. It's taking a wrecking ball to our productivity. It's taking a wrecking ball to our international competitiveness. This cannot go on. This cannot go on. We will not have an economy in this country if Labor keeps the reins for too much longer.
The time for discussion has expired. The Senate will now consider the proposal from Senator McKim, which is shown at item 12 on today's order of business. Is consideration of the proposal supported? Thank you. It is. With concurrence of the Senate, the clerks will set the clock in line with the informal arrangements made by the whips, and I call Senator Waters to move the motion.
Thanks very much, Acting Deputy President. I move the urgency motion, being the need for government to rein in property investor tax breaks and to direct APRA to rein in record high investor lending, both of which are driving up house prices and outcompeting first home buyers. Now, 1/3 of the most unaffordable cities to live on earth are in Australia. This is not the medal we want to be winning. The latest Global Housing Affordability Index lists 5 Australian capital cities in its top 15 least affordable: Sydney, Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth. When first home buyers spend their weekends getting outbid by property investors, and when renters line the block for a chance to spend more than half their weekly income to keep a roof over their heads, this Labor government continues to hand out $181 billion in tax breaks for already wealthy property investors. Over the last year, investor lending has increased by 12.3%, while first home buyer lending has increased by less than 1%. ABS data shows that $40 billion has been loaned to wealthy property investors in just 3 months. The system is rigged for investors, not for ordinary buyers, and as a result, ownership rates for young people are plummeting. The government has the power to address this. It should direct the banking regulator, APRA, to rein in this record high investor lending so that first home buyers actually stand a chance. And APRA has done this before, and it worked. We saw house price growth stabilise in a way that we haven't for the last 30 years. The government should also scrap the $181 billion in tax perks that are given to landlords, which tip the scales massively in favour of wealthy property investors. And adding fuel to the absolute dumpster fire that is the housing crisis is Labor's 5% deposit scheme. October 2025 saw the fastest increase in housing prices in more than 2 years. And coincidentally, that's also when Labor's 5% deposit scheme kicked in. The banks are loving it though. Increased house prices and bigger debts means that they will make even more profits off people's debt and people's pain. And they were already on track to make $30 billion in profits this financial year. It is absolutely obscene. By refusing to tackle the root causes of the housing crisis, this tinkering around the edges from this gutless government has only inflated property prices further, locking even more people out of home ownership. Without urgent action, first home buyers don't stand a chance. The major parties are in lockstep. They've created a system that makes the big banks and the property developers billions at the expense of a whole generation of young people. It shouldn't be easier to buy your 5th home than it is to buy your first, but right now that's what the case is. You should be able to buy a home on an average salary, but right now you can't. These are not radical suggestions, they are common sense. The solutions already exist and they work around the world. It starts with ending the special treatment for ultra-wealthy property investors over first-home buyers. We could cap and freeze rents and make sure that renters have real rights so that no one's got to live in a mould-ridden home without proper heating or cooling. And we could actually build more public and affordable homes with a public-owned property developer to build them at cost, not for profit. The housing crisis is no accident. It's been created by successive governments outsourcing to the private market, and the Greens will keep fighting to make sure that everyone is able to get and keep a roof over their heads.
Thank you. Senator Bragg.
Well, thank you very much, Acting Deputy President. And I don't think the Australian people are silly. And I think the Australian people know that there are gimmicks being offered by this government which will never solve this housing crisis, because of course the only way to solve the housing crisis is to build more homes. That's the only way to solve the crisis. Because the Australian people know that we have a larger population than we have ever had. And that the Australian people have noticed that there is a massive collapse in the number of houses. And the government, after having promised to spend some $60 billion on housing, has delivered more people but fewer houses. That's right, more people than ever but fewer houses. It's hard to believe that $60 billion could be lost in Labor bureaucracy, but that's the bill that Australians are having to pay, because we see the collapse in completions from an average of 200,000 houses a year, which is what the government inherited, down to 170,000 houses a year now. 30,000 houses a year less. And then we have this magnificent flagship Housing Australia Future Fund. $10 billion, 2 years of operation, and so far maybe a handful of houses. We don't know, because it's a very secretive fund. We don't know. We don't know. But we do know, because Senator Gallagher told us at Senate estimates that it had bought 340 homes. In fact, the language that Senator Gallagher used was that they had acquired and converted these properties. So this is a fund that is literally buying properties that the Australian people themselves could, to use the good senator's words, acquire on their own. So the Australian people are now competing with the government in the market. So having failed to build the houses, now they're buying the houses. Now, when you look at the contracts that have been signed by this Housing Australia Future Fund, in some cases, they are paying up to $1.3 million per dwelling. $1.3 million per dwelling. That is the cost of their new build. Now, the average cost of a new build is about $500,000. So why are they paying $1.3 million? Now, Housing Australia is a very inefficient agency. It is spending millions of dollars on consultants, but what it is also doing is funding big investors. It is underwriting the profits of big investors, the big super funds. All the Labor Party's best mates are getting a huge amount of money out of this scheme. And so the answer to the $1.3 million question is Labor's mates. You've got to pay all these people. All these crooked people have got to be paid with taxpayer funds in order to get these properties built. And so the housing fund, you wouldn't trust it to build a dunny. So far, 2 years, $10 billion, handful of houses maybe, most of them have been bought. It's been a disaster. And then we have the 5% deposit scheme, the gimmick. So having failed on supply, they now want to inflict, onto the Australian people a non-means tested scheme without place caps. And what you've seen in the first month is the biggest increase in entry-level home prices in years. The biggest increase in the entry-level property price in years. House prices are too high for first home owners in Australia. And for the Labor Party to come into this chamber and say they've solved the housing problem, it's all fixed with the 5% deposit scheme, it is insulting. Because what they are doing is making it harder for first home owners with their lumbering 95% mortgages. And the reality is that these policies of bureaucracy and gimmicks is only making the Australian dream disappear for younger Australians. It has been an absolute disaster so far.
Senator Walker.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. I understand why people are fired up about housing. I'm a young Australian. My group chats are basically divided between memes, TikToks and friends panic sending property listings they can't actually afford. So when the Greens bring forward a matter of urgency on housing, I hear the emotion behind it. But we also have to be clear-eyed about what actually fixes the problems, and that starts with facts, not just vibes. Let's start with APRA. This motion talks like investor lending is something the government can just turn off. APRA is independent. It exists so politicians don't meddle with lending standards and the financial system stays stable. Last week, APRA released its System Risk Outlook. They assessed the Australian financial system as stable, resilient and well placed to absorb shocks. They noted that lending standards overall remain sound, but that some higher risk behaviour is ticking up. APRA has already said that they're monitoring these risks and they've began to tighten lending standards if needed. And that's how it should work. Not politicians dictating interest rates from the Senate chamber, but experts making informed and considered decisions. I know it's tempting to yell, "Stop investors now," like it's the whole solution to housing affordability. But if we destabilise the system, young people will be the first to pay the price. Now on to the big issue, housing supply. The quickest way not to build the homes people need is to do what the Coalition did, nothing. In the 10 years they were in government, they delivered just 373 social and affordable homes. The Coalition did nothing, delivered even less, and they are still fighting tooth and nail to stop us from doing what's right. And the Greens, they've never delivered a thing and spend their time trying to stop any real action. Labor has built 5,000 social and affordable homes, and we have another 25,000 in the pipeline. They're real projects, real sites, real roofs, over real people's heads. And I wish I could say we did this with bipartisan support, but no, we've had the Coalition and the Greens teaming up like the world's oddest couple to block us at every turn. The Treasury Secretary said last month that some of the ongoing challenges are because legislation is being held up. Meanwhile, dwelling commencements grew by 9.2% through June 2025. That's a huge turnaround, especially when you remember they were falling at almost 29% the last time the Coalition was in charge. Dwelling investment is growing to 4.8% compared to going backwards when this government came to office. New builds are rising, not falling. And we're not just building more homes, we're helping young Australians get into them. Our 5% deposit scheme means every first home buyer can now get in the door sooner, without spending a decade only eating mee goreng and skipping coffees to scrape together a deposit. Since coming to office, we've already supported 197,000 Australians into home ownership through this program alone. We're delivering the most ambitious housing agenda since the end of World War II. That's $43 billion to help build more homes, give renters a better deal, and help more young people into home ownership. The challenges are big, no one denies that, but we're actually doing the work. Housing affordability is not just about supply, it's also about the cost of living. We're delivering 3 rounds of personal income tax cuts. One last year, one next year, and another after that. More than 1 million Australians on lower incomes will be exempt from the Medicare levy or continue to pay a reduced rate. And from next year, Australians will get a $1,000 instant tax deduction for work-related expenses, helping 5.7 million people keep more of what they earn. We're also using tax to boost housing supply, introducing new tax breaks that will help build 80,000 new rental properties. That is a real impact. And we're not stopping here. We're increasing super for low-income workers, cracking down on multinational tax avoidance, and supporting small businesses. In short, a tax system that actually supports young Australians instead of making life harder. Unlike some in this chamber, we don't pretend there is a single magic bullet. Instead, we are pulling every lever available. Supply, planning reforms, tax incentives, modular builds, the Housing Australia Future Fund, Help to Buy, the 5% deposit scheme, and more. It's not glamorous, it's not a slogan,
Senator
but
Walker,
it
your
works.
time has expired. Senator Whitten.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. I rise to respond to this motion, which yet again speaks to the stunning economic illiteracy of Australian Greens. Almost 3 million Australian households are rented, and about 80% or more are privately rented. Without private property investment, all of these people have nowhere to live. There are about 2 million private property investors in Australia. The Greens and Labor have routinely sabotaged these scapegoated these investors as greedy real estate tycoons in a failed attempt to hide their own complicity in our national housing crisis. However, the fact is 75% of these investors only own one investment property. Another 19% of them only own two. Among these investors are Greens who sit in this parliament, including Senator McKim himself. I'm confident Senator McKim doesn't consider himself a greedy property tycoon. Such is the case with almost every Australian property investor. These are everyday Australians who have sacrificed and saved to make an investment for a more secure future. In doing so, they are providing homes for Australians who would otherwise not have somewhere to live. They are providing the accommodation that governments can't and shouldn't. In Senator McKim's home state of Tasmania, there are barely 5,000 public dwellings for an estimated 50,000 renters. Across the country, there are about 452,000 public dwellings, well short of the almost 3 million needed to meet current demand. It's these same investors who are accommodating everyone else. We should not only acknowledge and be grateful for these Australian investors, we should be giving them incentives rather than winding them back as Senator McKim would have us do. Not every Australian wants to own their own home. Many are perfectly happy to rent for the flexibility and mobility it can provide, even in Labor's housing crisis. Australian investors meet this need. What these investors need are governments which understand that with every intervention in this market they make, they only create more problems and bump up price of housing. Three sectors of the economy in which the government make intervention is the most prominent are labour, housing and energy. And never have these three things been more expensive in Australia than they are today. Investment incentives like capital gains tax, discounts and negative gearing are a concession to this reality. That's why One Nation supports them in principle. One Nation has better solutions to get Australians into homes than scapegoating the investors who provide homes. First and foremost, we'll do what most Australians have said they want while every other party in this place ignores them. We'll end mass migration. We'll bring the numbers down to about 130,000 a year to give Australia a much-needed breather so we can catch up with housing supply. Even better, for housing availability, we'll ban foreign ownership on residential property. We'll give all foreign investors sufficient time to put their properties on the market so it does not unduly impact prices. It's easy to implement. Just require any vendor or agent to cite proof of Australian citizenship before allowing a sale. This will free up thousands of homes for Australians to buy as investments or as residences. There are other countries which have done this in recent years to address their own housing crisis, including Canada and New Zealand. It's time for Australia to take the same steps.
Thank you. Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. Well, APRA is an independent regulator responsible for the prudential safety of banks and other regulated entities, as well as financial system stability. And as the independent regulator, APRA is responsible for setting requirements for these entities, including management of financial and non-financial risks to ensure these financial institutions and the systems overall remain safe and stable. I thought it's just important to kind of say that up front because the motion talks about directing APRA, and it's important to say that they are independent. When it comes to housing in this country, the stats speak for themselves. Since the Albanese Labor government was elected in 2022, we have built 5,000 social and affordable homes, and there's another 25,000 in the pipeline. Housing is a life-defining challenge for millions of Australians. That's why we have a huge agenda that focuses on building more homes and making it easier for everyday Australians to buy their own home too. In their decade in office, the Coalition managed 373 social and affordable homes. There isn't an extra number in there, it is just 373 social and affordable homes. And their mates in the Greens political party have never delivered a thing. We're building more homes for Australians, and we're doing it despite the best efforts of the Coalition and the Greens to block us at every opportunity they get. Every step, every time we tried to bring something into this chamber to make it easier for Australians to get into their own homes or build more homes, we've seen the Coalition team up with the Greens to block it. On this side of the chamber, we recognise that housing is one of the defining challenges in our economy. We've set ambitious targets and we're backing that effort in with $43 billion in new investment to increase supply and help more first home buyers get into their first home. $43 billion. And our efforts are seeing the construction sector pick up too. I know how important this is for tradies right across Victoria and the country. And we're doing a bunch of things to grow more tradies and get more people on the tools to be able to build the homes that Australians need. Building approvals are growing at 8.4% now. And let's just remember that they were going backwards when we came to office by 21.6%. That is not a small number. 21.6% is what we were going back. We're also helping Australians get into the housing market sooner with our 5% deposit scheme, which was expanded to all first home buyers on the 1st of October. Since coming to office, the Albanese Labor government has supported 197,000 Australians to buy a home with the 5% deposit scheme. That's pretty life-changing for those 197,000 Australians. We're also acting to make sure the tax system is working to help with housing supply, with new tax breaks passed in 2024 to support the construction of around 80,000 new homes to rent. These are all part of the government's substantial agenda on tax, including boosting the superannuation savings of more than 1 million low-income workers while making superannuation concessions for people with very large balances fairer and more sustainable. We're delivering on a fairer, simpler and more sustainable tax system to support Australians to earn more and keep more of what they earn. We recognise that we've got a housing crisis in this country that has been generations in the making. And from our very first day coming into government, we've absolutely taken that challenge with both hands and worked every day to address the challenge that is before us. We know that there is a long way to go and housing is still really tough, but we're making good progress. We know that supply and demand are linked. We need to do the things to build more homes, and we need to have the policies to make sure that people can realise the dream of owning their own home too. But it is only a Labor government that's going to make that reality, that dream a reality for millions of Australians.
Senator Barbara Pocock.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. Well, I rise to speak to this matter, which is clearly an issue of public urgency, the need to rein in tax breaks that are overheating our housing market and to work to see APRA cut investor lending as it has historically. The truth is simple in relation to housing in this country. If this government put people first and exercised every possible tool in the toolbox, this housing crisis could be dealt with, and we could assist those many thousands of Australians, so many of them young people, feeling enormous anxiety about their opportunity to ever get into home ownership. Instead, we see a tsunami of investor activity distorting the very purpose of housing in this country. Instead of homes giving people shelter and safety, housing is being treated as a speculative investment vehicle. It has been turned into an asset for wealth accumulation. It's no longer the key first plank of economic security in our country. That is a roof over your head, and it's getting worse. Investor loans have reached a record high this year, and they now account for more than 40% of total new loans, up from just 25% in 2020. When investor demand outpaces owner-occupier demand like this, you don't just get more buyers, you get a bidding war. And first-home buyers are losing, and they are feeling it every weekend in every city and too many towns across our country. This surge in investor demand doesn't just push prices up, it locks in expectations of future growth and fuels ever more speculative buying. House prices are now forecast to rise by 9% next year. 9%. And that's on top of 6% already this year. This is causing enormous anxiety across our country for those young people. Labor is making things worse. Labor's policies are exacerbating the problem. Their 5% deposit scheme, designed to be an assistance to first-home buyers, is now unleashing a wave of first-home buyers and investors competing for the same small group of properties, driving up the price of housing in October alone by more than 1%. This is not just an economic imbalance, it's a moral one, because housing is a human right. Having a roof over your head is a human right and critical to having a safe life and a base from which to work and build a family, to have a community. First-home buyers simply don't stand a chance in a market that's rigged for investors in favour of wealthy, tax-subsidised investors. But we have got tools in our toolbox to deal with this, and we must. And APRA is holding some of them. APRA has intervened before, between 2014 and 2018, and put the handbrake on investor lending growth. And in this crisis, that's a tool we need right now. That period saw more loans flow to owner-occupiers and prices stabilised, to the slowest period for house price growth for over 30 years. It worked. And we can do it again. We can stabilise house price growth through actions like the possibilities available to APRA. This urgency motion calls for exactly that. We need the Treasurer to direct APRA to reinstate tighter macroprudential controls on investor lending before prices get even further out of control. We cannot simply leave it to market forces when they're manifestly failing. We can't leave it to the banks, who are profiting from a reckless amount of high-risk investor lending, including through trusts and other devices that avoid the lending buffer and feed the bubble. At the same time, we must address the unfair tax system, the billions in tax breaks flowing to property investors through negative gearing and capital gains discount. These are enormous distortions in our market. They must be reined in. We must make sure housing returns to a roof over your head, not a way of accumulating wealth by very wealthy people who already own, in so many places, multiple homes. If we do not act, we condemn another generation to being renters for life, to being locked out while the wealthy investor keep investing and receiving enormous tax breaks to buy more and more property.
Thank you. The question is that the motion moved by Senator McKim be agreed to. Those of that opinion say aye. Those against say no. The noes have it. I will now proceed to the consideration of documents. The documents are listed on page 4 of today's order of business. Senator Collins.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. I move that the Senate take note of document number 5, page 5 of the read, and seek leave to continue my remarks.
Thank you, Senator Collins. Sorry, just the swap there with the chair. What item on page 5 was it?
Item 5.
Item
on page
5 on page 5. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other senators that wish to either talk to or take on note any of the documents on page 5 or page 6? No? Thank you very much. Thanks, Clark. Now, are there any ministerial statements, ministers? Any ministerial statements? Oh, hello. Sorry about that, Senator Green.
Thank you.
You have the call.
On behalf of the Minister for Resources in Northern Australia, I table the 2025 Annual Statement on Developing Northern Australia, and I move that the Senate take note of the statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. A strong North means a strong Australia. Together with the Minister for Northern Australia, Madeleine King, and one of the Territory's strongest advocates, Special Envoy and Member for Solomon, Luke Gosling, we are working to secure the prosperity and security across this great region. It is a privilege to represent such a dynamic and diverse part of our country, and it's a privilege to be part of this Northern Australia team. In a government that is continuing to unlock some ambitious and promising opportunities for the North. From our Future Made in Australia agenda, our investments in green energy to deliver important water infrastructure and the recent landmark critical minerals deals with the US, we are doing the heavy lifting in a range of key areas to ensure our country continues to grow, that we create jobs and prosperity in the North, and we protect our natural environment. But with this is an acknowledgement that there is still more work to do to ensure that we truly grasp these opportunities and deliver lasting, meaningful impacts on our communities. Last year, Minister King launched our government's Northern Australian Action Plan. And today, Minister King delivered the annual statement to Parliament on developing Northern Australia and also released the annual progress report on the Action Plan, outlining our government's achievements across 6 policy priority areas. This report shows that we are activating the northern economy, driving growth across agriculture, tourism, critical minerals and renewable energy. We are investing in infrastructure to unlock growth, including road, rail, port and digital connectivity projects. And here are just a few of those important projects. We're delivering $7.2 billion to improve safety on the Bruce Highway. Work has officially started on Queensland's beef roads through central Queensland with $400 million from our government and another $100 million from the state government. There is $1.1 billion going into the Tanami Road upgrades across WA and the NT. And of course, work continues on the Outback Way across all 3 of the northern jurisdictions. This is on top of investment into a number of regional airports in the north, which are such critical lifelines for communities. Our government has always valued and understood the NBN and the community's expectations for decent, reliable digital connectivity, which is why we've invested in programs like our Regional Connectivity Program, Regional Roads Australia Mobile Program. We are also boosting safety and building national security through upgrades to defence bases in the north. Across 5 key defence projects, $1.77 billion is estimated to be delivered to date, with a further $749 million in the next financial year. And we are protecting the North's unique environment and cultural heritage, with First Nations aspirations at the heart of this work. So much of our incredible beauty and diversity is in our northern landscapes. The Great Barrier Reef, our wet tropics rainforests, Kakadu, Uluru and the Kimberley. These places all have enduring, deep connections to First Nations Australians. And improving the prosperity of First Nations peoples and communities is critical to the success of the Northern Australia agenda. I would like to recognise the Northern Australia Indigenous Reference Group led by Professor Martin Nakada. Along with Minister King and Senator the Honourable Malarndirri McCarthy, Minister for Indigenous Australians, we are working with the IRG to practical actions to improve the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the north. Acting Deputy President, we have also announced today the continuation of the investment period of the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility. The NAIF is our government's main investment vehicle in Northern Australia, and its investment period will be extended for another decade until mid-2036. This comes after a review earlier this year into NAIF's operations, which found overwhelming support for this facility across business, industry, government and the public. The NAIF is proving effective in developing Northern Australia. It now has a portfolio of 32 projects forecast to generate more than $33 billion in public benefit. Its supports across sectors extends to tourism and supporting infrastructure. NAIF-supported projects include airport upgrades at regional hubs like Darwin, Alice Springs, Rockhampton, Townsville, Cairns and Mackay. As well as supporting connectivity across Northern Australia, these upgrades will also support air travel from the north to other parts of Australia and to our near neighbours in the Pacific. And they will help our government deliver on improved mobility opportunities between the Pacific and Australia under the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Scheme. There are 31,000 palm workers in Australia. More than half of these workers are in Northern Territory, Western Australia and Queensland. These workers make vital economic contributions to regional Australia and enrich the communities that they are a part of. The palm scheme is also highly valued by Pacific countries in Timor-Leste. They're contributing to Australia's economy, but also to their own families and communities back home. Now, Acting Deputy President, before I close, I would like to acknowledge some of our northernmost communities are currently feeling the impacts of Cyclone Fina. Cyclone Fina has spent the past few days travelling across the top end, causing considerable disruption and damage in Darwin and surrounds. The cleanup is underway and we'll no doubt learn more about the full extent of the damage in the coming days. Many residents and businesses remain without power and water, while Northerners are no stranger to cyclones. It continues to be an anxious time. Fina has continued over the north of Western Australia. Our thoughts are currently with the WA communities and we wish them safety in this next few hours. We recognise the incredible efforts of our emergency personnel and volunteers who put so much of their lives on the line to protect our communities during these events. Finally, I'd like to put on the record my thanks to the many stakeholders across the north that work every single day to make our region the very best that it can be. Since my appointment as the Assistant Minister for Northern Australia a few months ago, their openness and willingness to partner with me and our government more broadly as we work to progress the Northern agenda has been absolutely incredible. I've been meeting with people, community organisations, businesses and industry leaders right across the north, not just in my hometown in Cairns, but of course in Townsville, Mount Isa, Mackay, Rockhampton, Darwin, Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory, as well as some of our closest neighbours in the Pacific, including PNG and Fiji. These conversations have highlighted both the immense potential and the shared challenge of our vast region. And our senators in this place will well know that I have a vested interest in this policy area. I call the North home. I have a 3-year-old daughter who is growing up in the North. I am part of a connected community on country that is incredibly beautiful and diverse. I'm sure that I speak for others in here in the Senate today who live or are lucky enough to spend time in the North, that it is a very, very special place. Our regional and rural communities each have a unique identity and sense of community. Our people of the North work hard and often in challenging conditions. Cyclone Fina is a reminder of this. Our government is committed to supporting them now and for many generations to come into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Green. I'm sure we all wish everyone all the very best at the moment during this time as well. So thank you for that. Senator Shoebridge?
Thanks, Acting Deputy. Yes, I also, on behalf of my party, pass on our thoughts and concerns to our friends in the North, and I know I was speaking to my colleagues in the Northern Territory and Lutruwita country, and it's been a pretty tough last few days for them, and of course we all have an obligation to keep the climate safe for them. But I rise to take note of the Minister's report and comments, and on behalf of my colleague Senator Ormond Payne, I seek leave to continue my remarks.
Thank you very much, Senator. Are there any other... Oh, are you continuing?
I have another matter, but...
Oh, sure,
yeah.
sure.
And
Sorry.
I'm sorry, the procedure's been a little muddled today.
Sorry, Senator Shoebridge, please.
My timing clock got a little muddled today by what happened in the Senate, and I wasn't sure if we'd gone through documents yet.
We have.
Well, could I seek the indulgence of the chamber to take note of a document that I missed and then simply seek leave to continue my remarks. And it's document 8 on page 5, and it's a response to an OPD. Not to speak, just to seek leave.
Okay, so I'm in the hands of the chamber. Is that okay? The government is happy to allow that to happen. So
thanks.
leave is granted. Leave is
Yes.
granted.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Senator Shoebridge. Thank you, Senators, for cooperation on that matter. Now, are there any other ministerial statements? I think it is now. Minister? Minister.
Thank you. I table documents relating to orders for the production of documents concerning systems and projects in aged care, the Australian National Science and Technology Organisation, and stakeholder meetings and engagements relating to the Environment Protection Reform Bills, relating to OPD 201, 223 and 233.
Thank you, Minister.
Is that all?
Any other statements? No? Oh, sorry, Senator Shoebridge.
Just for abundant caution in relation to each of those documents, I take note and seek leave to continue my remarks in relation to all three.
Excellent. Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much, Senator Shoebridge. Now, the President has received a letter nominating a senator to be a member of a committee. I call the Minister.
Thank you. I seek leave to move a motion to appoint a senator to a committee.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted.
I move that Senator David Pocock be appointed as a participating member of the Select Committee on Intergenerational Housing Inequity from the establishment of the committee on the 17th of March 2026.
Very good.
Yep.
All right, messages. The President has received a message from the House of Representatives forwarding the Freedom of Information Amendment Bill 2025 for concurrence, and I call the Minister.
Thank you. I move that this bill may proceed without formalities and be now read a first time.
So I'll put the question moved by the Minister. All those in favour say aye. Against? The ayes have it. I call the Clerk.
A bill for an act to amend the law relating to access to information and for related purposes.
I call the Minister.
Thank you. I table a revised explanatory memorandum relating to the bill, move that this bill be now read a second time, and I seek leave to have the second reading speech incorporated in Hansard.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted. In accordance with Standing Order 1153, further consideration of this bill is now adjourned until the 3rd of December 2025. Senators, the President has received messages from the House of Representatives forwarding the Environment Protection Reform Bill 2025 and 6 related bills for concurrence, and I call the Minister.
Thank you. I move that these bills may proceed without formalities, may be taken together and be now read a first time.
Now, the motion moved by the Minister... all those in favour of the motion moved by the Minister say aye. Against? The ayes have it. I call the Clerk.
Environment Protection Reform Bill 2025, National Environment Protection Agency Bill 2025, Environment Information Australia Bill 2025, Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Restoration Charge Imposition Bill 2025, Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation General Charges Imposition Bill 2025, Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Customs Charges Imposition Bill 2025, Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Excise Charges Imposition Bill 2025.
Thank you, Clerk. I'll call the Minister.
Thank you. I table a revised explanatory memorandum relating to the Environment Protection Reform Bill 2025 and move that these bills be now read a second time, and I seek leave to have the second reading speeches incorporated in Hansard.
Thank you, Ministers. Leave granted. Leave is granted. Now, in accordance with Standing Order 1153, further consideration of these bills is now adjourned to the 24th of March 2026. Senators, the President has received messages from Her Excellency, the Governor-General, notifying assent to 7 laws, details of which will be incorporated into Hansard.
Business to be considered?
Yeah, where are we? Almost. We're just checking that you're going to the Senate Business Order number 1. Okay. All right. Clark?
Business of the Senate, order of the day number 1.
Okay, Senator Grogan.
Thank you. I present the report of the Education and Employment Legislation Committee on the provision of the Education Legislation Amendment, Integrity and Other Measures Bill 2025, together with accompanying documents.
Okay, Clark.
Business of the Senate, notice of motion number 4 in the name of Senator Shoebridge concerning a reference to the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Legislation Committee.
Senator Shoebridge.
Thanks very much, Acting Deputy. I move the motion, which would refer for much needed inquiry the Australian Naval Nuclear Power Safety Regulations to the Senate Committee for review and report. The Australian Naval Nuclear Power Safety Regulations 2025 are the first set of regulations made under the Australian Naval Nuclear Power Safety Act 2024. Those regulations are indeed very extensive. They, for example, deal with the managing, storing and disposing of radioactive waste from the AUKUS submarine project at Osborne and Stirling. They include detailed regulations for the handling of radioactive waste from Australian submarines, but also from US and UK submarines. And they also put in place, for the first time, very clear maps delineating where the first 2 nuclear waste dumps and nuclear waste facilities and nuclear processing facilities have been established under AUKUS. Those, of course, are in HMAS Stirling on Garden Island, just off Perth. And the regulations include the whole of the island in the declared zone, opening up the entirety of the island to the storage of nuclear waste and to the processing of nuclear waste, and for AUKUS regulatory material, AUKUS related activities. Of course, the great bulk of Garden Island is actually at the moment open to public access and fishing and barbecuing, and indeed is in many ways one of the most beautiful pieces off the coast of Perth, off the coast of Fremantle, for the boating, fishing community to enjoy and access. But under these regulations, the entirety of Garden Island, including the beaches, the picnic grounds, the pepper, particularly the northern part of the island, are all just declared within the zone. Not only that, but the regulations also clearly delineate the Osborne designated zone in the Osborne Naval Shipyard in South Australia, and set out the boundaries where nuclear waste can be stored and processed and where AUKUS activities can happen. And the map, as I said, for HMAS Stirling covers not only all of the island but the access point for HMAS Stirling, and the map for Osborne is pretty much a huge arc of land stretching all the way out, a significant way out into the water of the just outside of the naval shipyard. What did the government do to alert the communities of Osborne and the communities of Perth that they'd made these declarations and maps and excluded so much of the waters surrounding Stirling and so much of the waters surrounding Osborne? What did they do to tell the public about it? Nothing. Nothing. They published them in some regs where even on the most accessible public register, you couldn't find the maps.
Couldn't find the maps. And not only are the maps inaccessible, but nobody was told that the regulations had been made. They were just quietly published on the legislative website. No prior notification. Now, how did the regulations come to be? Well, the regulations came to be because this government decided to have effectively a secret inquiry into the proposed regulations. Submissions were sought and obtained from the public, but the government has refused to publish the submissions. Just totally refused to publish the submissions. Not only have they refused to publish the submissions, they've refused in any way to deal with what we know were very substantial concerns raised by the community about the extent of these regulations. And I know this because a number of entities have publicly themselves provided their submissions. And a number of those entities, they're First Nations groups, they are environment groups, they're peace groups, they're anti-nuclear groups. They've pointed out how the government was proposing in its regulations to override not just laws to store nuclear waste in WA and South Australia, in the sites of Stirling and Osborne, but indeed the government was proposing in its initial draft for the regulations to override a raft of other state and territory laws that relate to radiation safety and radiation protection. And obviously communities in the Northern Territory, which have been fighting nuclear waste dumps, don't want to see the NT provisions and protections overridden. Communities in my home state of New South Wales don't want to see the laws protecting them from harmful radiation overridden. Communities in Queensland, Victoria, WA, South Australia, Tasmania, the ACT and the NT all want their governments to have on the laws tough provisions to protect them from the dangers of radiation. But what do these regulations do? What do the regulations under this AUKUS bill do? They say in relation to nuclear waste and nuclear materials produced under the AUKUS project, they literally allow every existing state and territory law that regulates harmful radiation and nuclear activities. They're all just overridden. And I'll give you a list of the bills, of the laws that are overridden to allow the Defence Department to basically declare anywhere in the country a nuclear waste dump and then ignore state and territory laws and dump the waste there or the processing there. They are the Labor government under these regulations has overridden the following state and territory laws on nuclear safety and protection from radiation. They've overridden the Protection from Harmful Radiation Act 1990 in New South Wales. They've overridden the Radiation Act 2005 from Victoria, the Radiation Safety Act 1999 from Queensland, the Nuclear Activities Regulation Act 1978 in WA, Labor's overriding the Nuclear Waste and Storage and Transportation Prohibition Act 1999 in WA, the Radiation Safety Act 1975 in WA, the Nuclear Waste Storage Facility Prohibition Act 2000 in South Australia, the Radiation Protection and Control Act 2021 in South Australia, the Radiation Protection Act 2005 in Tasmania, the Radiation Protection Act 2006 in the ACT, and Labor's also overriding the Northern Territory's Radiation Protection Act 2004, all with effectively a secret set of regs that got published on a hard-to-find website, which there was no public notification of, that all of these state and territory laws protecting their communities from radiation have just been overridden for the purpose of AUKUS nuclear waste and AUKUS nuclear storage, all just totally overridden. And did I mention this government has refused to produce the public submissions that went to this, that were made in relation to it? This is an extraordinary act of arrogance and hubris from the Albanese government. And so, of course, the Greens are asking that these regulations be referred for an inquiry, an open public Senate inquiry, so the people of Victoria can have a say about whether or not they think it's right that the Radiation Act in Victoria has been overridden, so that AUKUS waste can be dumped anywhere in Victoria. So the people in my home state of New South Wales can have a say about whether or not the important Protection from Harmful Radiation Act can be overridden to dump nuclear waste in Port Kembla or Newcastle or wherever the Albanese government wants to dump their waste and open another nuclear facility. Because I can tell you right now, the people in Port Kembla in the Illawarra are in close to open revolt with this government because of their plans to whack an East Coast nuclear submarine base in their country, in Port Kembla, in open revolt about it. So now what we understand is the Albanese government's looking for a second target site and are thinking, well, maybe they can squeeze it into Newcastle. And the people of Newcastle, that beautiful Wabakal and Warramai land in Newcastle, is now being sized up, measured for a nuclear submarine base, a US nuclear submarine base, and US nuclear waste, and UK nuclear waste, and Australian nuclear waste. I can tell you now the people of the Hunter don't want the Albanese government suspending the New South Wales Protection from Harmful Radiation Act so that they can have a nuclear waste dump hoisted on them. And they want to have a say about it. But as with this government, as with the Labor Party and the Coalition, the war parties in this place, they don't want the public to have a say on AUKUS. They don't want the public to have a say on whether or not their community should be saddled with a nuclear waste dump jam-packed with Donald Trump's nuclear waste. And so they push it through in some secret regs. But we're saying give people around the country a right to a fair hearing, at least on this aspect of AUKUS. And let's have a proper hearing into these so-called nuclear power safety regulations, but are really just a nuclear waste facilitation regs. Have a proper say. Because, I mean, what is the government afraid of? That the people around the country will actually say what they think about AUKUS? They'll say that they actually think Donald Trump is one of the least trustworthy leaders on the planet. They'll probably point out that he's right now ratting out Ukraine, who the US government encouraged in their resistance. Now, when the going gets tough, he's going to just rat out Ukraine. Like Donald Trump is pulling away from European allies, like he's threatening to go to war with NATO allies and invade NATO allies, like he is totally untrustworthy security partner. Are you afraid you're going to hear the people of Australia say that? Say, why on earth are you entering into a 5-decade-long agreement with a totally erratic, increasingly dictatorial and undemocratic regime like the Trump regime? Are you afraid that they're going to tell you that? Because they probably will. And they'll probably tell you that they think it's absolutely bonkers to spend $375 billion on a handful of nuclear submarines whose main purpose is to draw us into the next US war with China. They'll probably tell you that's bonkers and that they'd rather you didn't do that, and they'd rather you spent $375 billion on schools and hospitals and dealing with the climate crisis and engaging with our neighbours openly. That's probably why the war parties don't want an inquiry into these regs, because the public, when they get a chance to tell you what they think this AUKUS thing is a bloody big scam where we give billions of dollars to the US and UK and we get nothing in return. They think it's dangerous to go down war paths with Donald Trump, and they don't want to go to war with our major trading partner, and they can't work out why Labor is taking us down that path. And they want the money to not be spent on a handful of nuclear submarines, which we probably won't even get, and they'd rather it spent on their absolute material needs right now. Needs for their schools, for their hospitals, to build public housing. That's probably why this government, the Labor Party, doesn't want an inquiry into this regs, because they're scared about what the public will tell them. Well, the Greens aren't scared of what the public will tell us. Bring it on. Bring on at least this inquiry into AUKUS.
Thank you, Senator Shoebridge. Anyone else? So, the question is that the motion moved by Senator Shoebridge be agreed. Those of that opinion say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Division required, and we'll defer that to tomorrow, being after 6:30 p.m. Thank you. I call the clerk.
Business of the Senate notice of motion number 6, standing in the name of Senator Roberts, into a reference to the Economics References Committee.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you. I move the motion. Business of the Senate number 6 in today's Senate notice paper. 3 years ago, One Nation told the country, quote, Australia is firmly on the path towards a dystopian future, with households having their access to electricity taken out of their hands and monitored, controlled and restricted by governments. Control of your electricity use in the government's hands, in energy company hands, including foreign multinational companies. Control of your electricity, access to it, and whether you can use it, and for what you can use it. This is only possible with the now mandatory rollout of smart meters, which are internet-connected electricity meters. So I'll read the motion. That the following matter be referred to the Economics References Committee for inquiry and report by 1st of April 2026. The state of consumer protections in relation to electricity smart meters, with specific reference to A, consumer rights to opt out from smart meter installation. Consumer rights to opt out of smart meter installation. B, surge, cost-reflective power or flexible tariffs and their impacts on household power bills. C, the Australian Electricity Market Commission rule change allowing electricity companies to change customers onto a punitive power tariff without their consent after 2 years. I'll say that one again. The Australian Electricity Market Commission rule change allowing electricity companies to change your, as a customer, change you onto a punitive power tariff without their consent after 2 years, and any related matters. For many years, the rollout of smart meters was promised as purely voluntary. The experience of people who voluntarily got a smart meter was absolutely terrible. Daniel Mercer from the ABC reported in April the New South Wales energy watchdog sounding the alarm, saying too many consumers are being hit with poor service and left worse from the smart meter rollout. The watchdog in New South Wales said there had been a major increase in the number of complaints related to sudden, unexplained changes to people's electricity tariffs. Changes to their tariffs, no consent. Such changes often involve customers being switched from flat rate prices, where they paid the same rate for a unit of power, no matter when they bought it, to complex and dynamic charges. Just changed to more expensive and complex dynamic charges. Among these were time of use tariffs, in which customers paid more for power at peak times, and demand charges, which involved charging someone based on their single biggest half hour of use across an entire month. So if you used a high level of power for just half an hour, that put you at a higher rate. That was across all your electricity use for the entire month. Quote, the smart meter rollout aimed to increase flexibility and customer engagement with the energy market by allowing customers to manage their energy use and save money, said the New South Wales energy watchdog, Ms Young. Continued the quote, but we aren't seeing evidence of this in complaints that come to the Ombudsman. In fact, we're seeing the opposite, end of quote. So what was the Albanese Labor government's response to all of these problems? Did they try to fix them? No, they doubled down. The Labor government in June made the smart meter rollout mandatory. This federal Labor government made the smart meter rollout mandatory. They did say anyone going onto a smart meter couldn't be put onto a punitive tariff. They did say that. This, though, is only temporary relief that will last just 2 years. 2 years. After that, it's open season for power company profiteering. And the smart meters are a key part of the government's emergency plans. Think about why they need emergency plans. Energy Minister Chris Bowen is speaking his household battery scheme. What he isn't telling Australians about is the fine print. To receive the government subsidy for a household battery, your battery must be, quote, capable of participating in a virtual power plant. A virtual power plant. This gets more and more crazy. A virtual power plant, or VPP, is simply about being able to drain your battery that you paid for, drain it to the grid whenever your power company wants. Combined with an always connected smart meter, there's nothing stopping the grid operator from draining a household battery whenever they want in the future, whenever they want, disregarding your need for electricity. By the way, you, the householder, pay for the battery. Home batteries, why are they needed? Well, they're needed to ensure stability, stability of electricity supply. Solar and wind are inherently asynchronous, making them unstable. Coal, hydro, nuclear, gas are all synchronous, they're stable, reliable, secure. As the proportion of electricity from solar and wind increases, the grid becomes unstable. This is fact. It's happened overseas, it has happened here. As the grid becomes more unstable, the ability to reach into Australians' homes to take over the batteries will be too tempting for you lot, the government. It will be essential to protect our grid. To reach in and control your battery, drain your battery that you paid for, will be essential to protect the grid from their onslaught of solar and wind asynchronous generation. The government won't be able to resist. We already have the data to prove it. Last year, Queensland's state-owned power grid throttled almost 170,000 air conditioners, 6 times in just 2 months. I'll say that again. Last year, Queensland's state government-owned power grid throttled back almost 170,000 air conditioners, 6 times in just 2 months, under a scheme called Peak Smart, to try and protect the grid as it buckled under the net zero transition. Under the Peak Smart, it's a good name, isn't it? Under the Peak Smart scheme, users were not even told their air conditioners were being throttled. Not even told. I have since the start been aware of these meters being considered because the so-called energy transition is really an energy reduction, an energy restriction, an energy control. The objective is control. I've been saying this since 2016. The objective is control. Furtive, unexplained control of your access to electricity. Furtive, unexplained, unaccountable control of your access to electricity. So much for transparency under you lot in the Albanese Labor government. That's why One Nation is moving this motion to have an inquiry into the rollout of smart meters and what consumer protections are needed. Because right now, there are no consumer protections, none at all. And the public has been misled and deceitfully the truth is hidden. Why would you hide it? Because they're out to get you, to screw you. What protections are actually in place to make sure power companies aren't going to gouge Australians through a smart meter? Right now, it looks like nothing. The smart meter rollout was changed from voluntary to mandatory without any notice, despite the many problems that have been raised and pointed out. Australians pointing out the many problems to the government. Why? Who benefits? Certainly not everyday Australians that this Labor government dishonestly pretends to serve. Instead, it's stealing. One Nation wants this inquiry to answer these questions and many more. When it comes to Australians battling greedy power companies, including foreign multinationals, One Nation backs Australians every day of the week. We back you, Australians. I encourage the Senate to send the issue of smart meters to an inquiry and to back Australian consumers being protected from greedy power companies, including foreign multinationals in charge of vital parts of our essential infrastructure, our electricity grid, arguably the most important infrastructure in our country. Will the government oppose this reference for a Senate committee inquiry and continue to hide the truth from Australians? Or will it be open? Will you be open, transparent and honest with the Australian people?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. There are no further speakers. The question is that the motion put by Senator Roberts be agreed to. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. Division required. Okay, we will defer that division to tomorrow. Thank you. I call the clerk.
Government Business Order of the Day number 1, Social Security and Other Legislation Amendment, Technical Changes number 2, Bill 2025, in committee.
The committee is considering the Social Security and Other Legislation Amendment, Technical Changes number 2, Bill 2025 as amended, and Amendment 2 on sheet 3481, moved by Senator Thorpe. The question is that Schedule 5 stand as printed. Those in favour say aye. Oh, sorry, Senator Allman-Payne. Those in favour say aye. No, what are we? Sorry. Oh. Yep, Senator Allman-Payne.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wasn't sure if we were doing something else first. Just following the questioning this morning around Schedule 5, I want to note that Economic Justice Australia and Australian Council for Social Services put out a media release which stated that said the highly contested Schedule 5 amendment to the Social Security and Other Legislation Amendment Technical Changes Bill number 2 has this morning taken up the majority of discussion in the Senate. During questioning about legitimacy of the amendment, the debate included discussions about whether any organisations were consulted about Schedule 5. Led by Senators Penny Allman-Payne and Lydia Thorpe, Senator Katie Gallagher was asked whether any organisations were consulted. Comments made could have been heard as suggesting consultations did take place. Both EJA and ACOS would like to make clear that we were at no point consulted on the Schedule 5 amendment. EJA and ACOS confirmed that from the first notification from the government about the proposed Schedule 5, both organisations have made clear that we oppose the Schedule 5 amendment. Subsequent to learning of the addition of Schedule 5 to the bill, both organisations have put out strong statements opposing it, and each organisation has urged Parliament to reject Schedule 5. We continue to urge all parliamentarians to reject Schedule 5 in its entirety. And then there are a couple of links to their individual statements. Minister, I just wanted to get some clarity. Earlier today you talked about the fact that you were talking with ACOS and EJA about the way that they could work with you in relation to this Schedule 5. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on what those discussions have actually entailed?
Well, just to be clear in relation to that, I never once said that those organisations had been consulted. I said they were advised. So I don't think there is any if people have misinterpreted my comments, I just wanted to be clear about that. I said they were advised ahead of the government's public announcement, and that remains a fact. My other comments this morning were that the Minister has indicated she is prepared to work with those organisations as guidance around how that part of the bill will work once it passes, and if it passes the Senate. So that is really a matter for the Minister and those organisations to determine.
Senator Allman-Payne.
So I just want to clarify, because this morning I thought my understanding was that there had been discussions about how they could do that. So just for clarity, at this point, is it just the case that the Minister has indicated they will work with them, not that any discussions have happened about how that might occur?
No, I didn't indicate that there had been discussions about that. I said that the Minister had indicated that to those organisations that she was prepared to work with them, and I'm just advised that she has written to them to that effect.
Senator Allman-Payne.
Sorry, Chair. Okay. Minister, could you advise on what date the Minister wrote to the organisations to that effect?
I don't have the exact date, but it was last week, I understand.
Senator Ormond-Payne. Yep, but no more. So now. The question is that Schedule 5 stand as printed. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. I believe the ayes have it.
So we need somebody to move another amendment because we've dealt with this box here.
I'll wait to get the call.
Yeah, Senator Ormond-Payne.
Thank you very much, Chair. I move amendments 1 to 6 on sheet 3499 by leave together.
Is leave granted? Leave is not granted. Okay. So leave is granted? Leave is granted. Leave is granted. Oh, Senator Ormond-Payne.
Thanks, Chair. The Greens have real concerns about the retrospective validation of income apportionment. We understand this is not the first time that Minister Plibersek has retrospectively made lawful things that were unlawful. She did something similar when she was previously the Minister. I just want to find my right page. We have a concern that the retrospective validation of income apportionment will impact people's rights, in particular the ability for individuals to challenge convictions arising from this unlawful method, and it represents a bad precedent for future legislation. In relation to this particular part of the bill, the government has been unable to provide clarity regarding support for individuals who've been subject to a conviction as a result of income apportionment. And I note that Dr Rudge has noted in their submission to the inquiry on this bill, he quotes, or I quote, "Indeed, the implications of a person accepting the resolution payment are of great concern. It does not appear clear to me whether the person forfeits their rights to appeal the income apportioned debt or to appeal any criminal conviction that may have arisen in respect of the income apportioned debt. This should be clarified, and no such forfeiture should be the consequence of the resolution payment scheme created by this bill." I guess my question to the Minister is, why is retrospectivity necessary, and would it undermine the resolution scheme? And if so, how do you say that it would do that?
Minister.
Thank you. I think I can answer in the way I'm going to respond to this amendment. The government will be opposing this amendment. Retrospective validation of income apportionment is a central part of the government's resolution approach and is necessary to manage the legal, resourcing and operational risks posed by income apportionment. Retrospective validation recognises income apportionment, although not consistent with the legislation prior to this bill, was nonetheless a reasonable method for determining the extent to which someone's income affects their entitlements to a social security pension or payment. In the vast majority of cases, income apportionment only affected debts around the margins. The person did own a debt, the question was just by how much. Without retrospective validation, millions of social security decisions going back decades will remain incorrect at law. Going back and recalculating millions of debts is not viable. Debts many years old would have to be reopened, which could cause distress and protracted uncertainty for the millions of current and former social security recipients affected. It could cost up to an estimated $9 billion, require thousands of officials working over many years, and divert resources from frontline services. Section 1117C in Schedule 1 of the bill expressly preserves individuals' right to bring legal proceedings and pursue legal remedies in respect of any existing cause of action. For example, any common law remedy such as compensation that may be available in relation to the use of income apportionment. Decisions affected by income apportionments can still be reviewed. If a decision affected by income apportionment is reviewed in future, it will be reviewed in line with the method in this bill.
Senator Orman-Payne.
Minister, during the inquiry into this bill, when the person giving evidence from Economic Justice Australia was asked whether they had concerns about retrospectivity, their comment in the inquiry was that it wasn't their preferred approach, but that it wasn't on the table. But their preferred approach was to waive the debts. And noting that many of these debts are very old, so I guess my question is, why has the government gone down the path of making past actions that were unlawful, lawful, which is effectively giving the department a free pass for more unlawful activity, which we see repeatedly in the Department of Social Services? Why did the government choose to go down that path when they could have simply waived outstanding debts?
Minister.
So, on the issue of income apportionment, this practice was utilised and over many years, I think going back to the 1990s, and it was understood to be a lawful way of interpreting the social security legislation. As it turns out, as senators know, that has now become clear it is incorrect, and that process had been used in an inconsistent way with the legislation. And as I just said in relation to explaining our opposition to the amendment being moved, and I understand retrospective legislation is something that is used very, very rarely. Nobody, I think, enjoys coming in and doing retrospective legislation. There is, on very rare occasions, times when it is the appropriate course of action, and in relation to the issues that I've just outlined, in relation to the costs, in relation to the millions of customers that would have to go back, and the amount of resources that would be displaced to go and deal with this if we weren't retrospectively dealing with this matter, I think is just unreasonable. And in the vast majority of cases, income apportionment only affected debts around the margins. Like I just said, these are the situations where the person was overpaid. The question is just by how much. Most of those debts are not due to fraud. Debts can occur because a person made a mistake when reporting or due to an unintended oversight, but they are still debts. And I think that needs to be understood. And in the vast majority of those cases, it would be unreasonable to waive that debt in full. For example, there was a $3,900 New Start allowance debt that arose because a person misrepresented their earnings from multiple employers for 10 months in 2016. When recalculated, that debt decreased by $300, but this is still a significant amount owed to the government. So the government decided, based on all of the information available to us and the resources that would have to be deployed if we were to go back and investigate all of those cases, and in some cases spending hours only to find out that income apportionment wasn't used. So there are all of those examples as well, that this was the most appropriate course of action.
Senator Orman-Payne.
Minister, we currently have a situation where we've got Department of Employment and Workplace Relations, I guess in conjunction with Services Australia, having to regularly indicate that they are, for example, suspending payment cancellations because it turns out that the basis on which that was happening is unlawful. We've got a department that is telling people, has said in estimates that they can't be certain that the targeted compliance framework and the way that it's been operationalised, this is to use their language, is consistent with the legislative requirements, which is another way of saying that it's unlawful. We have numerous occasions in the past where it just seems that Services Australia or the department miscalculates something, doesn't do it the way that it's supposed to. And I note that Dr Rudge said in his evidence to the inquiry into this bill that whilst there's this general view that everybody thought that what they were doing was lawful at the time, therefore it was fine, there were different ways that the department could have apportioned people's income, and this way, this unlawful way, was chosen in particular because they took the view that it was more likely to uncover fraud. So it was an active decision to do it that way. Minister, can you understand why people on income support are concerned at the fact that the government is again passing legislation to retrospectively validate something that was unlawful in circumstances where the department continues? I mean, robo-debt was the most egregious example, but we have this ongoing issue where unlawful activity takes place and then the government and the department get a free pass. Can you understand why that causes such levels of concern and distrust amongst people on income support?
Minister.
Thank you. Well, just to be clear that robo-debt and income apportionment, although they're often put together, are quite different from each other, and so I want to make that point clear. In relation to the work that's underway, and Minister Plibersek and I are dealing with a lot of issues that have been identified around the legislative framework and, you know, how it's put into practice, and where those issues arise, governments have to deal with them. Like, income apportionment hasn't happened since December 2020. I think it's December 2020. So this is not a current problem, but we are cleaning it up. We are trying to deal with it and make sure that the legislation aligns with practice. And dealing with that means on income apportionment, we have to go back 30 years and deal with the fact that that has now become clear as of December 2020, that the way that it was being done for 30 years was inconsistent with the legislative framework. So we're dealing with it, and we're trying to deal with it in the fairest way. And we're dealing with it in terms of, you know, some of the changes we're putting in place on debt recovery and waiving debts. And I agree that trust in by people who use or who receive income support payments is essential, and part of trust, of making sure that we are trying to ensure there's trust in the system, is dealing with problems when they arise. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here today. And I've already said retrospective legislation is not something that anyone comes into this chamber happy to do. But there are times where it is the most appropriate form of action or course of action in order to deal with a problem that affects millions over 30 years, and to deal with it in the most reasonable and careful way. And that's what this bill does.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ormond-Payne.
Minister, the relevant legal case that has essentially given rise to this.
Apologies. It being 8 p.m, I shall report to the Senate. The committee reports progress. I propose the question that the Senate do now adjourn. All those in. That's all. Yes. Oh, Senator Grogan.
Thank you. On this last sitting week, I thought I would take a moment to reflect on the year that was. And it has been an incredible year, particularly for us on this side of the chamber. We've seen the population of this country reject the divisive, aggressive and unnecessary policies of the coalition and support a government who has proven over its first term to support them. I was particularly proud of the result we had in South Australia, in my home state, where we welcomed the amazing Senator Charlotte Walker to our caucus, and it was excellent to have her join myself and Senator Muriel Smith, with the three of us being elected at this most recent election. We also retained all our lower house seats in South Australia and also added the excellent Claire Clutterham, the member for Stunt, to our ranks in the other place. All of our caucus members, not just the amazing ones in South Australia, but across the whole country, have hit the ground running. They are bringing a diversity and a richness and a strength to our caucus and to this place in terms of representing the people of Australia. Throughout the election campaign, I had the pleasure of continuing to engage, and in being re-elected, I now get another 6 years of continuing to engage with the good people of the seat of Grey, which is my duty electorate. And engaging with those communities is so rewarding. Their experience is quite different to the metro areas, and we know as a country, we have a very strong saturation of people in our metro areas, and in South Australia that's particularly pointed. So when we look at the policies we roll out and the way that governments prioritise what they're going to do, it impacts most significantly on those people in those more regional areas where the population is more sparse, where delivery of services can be so much harder. So to be able to see what rolling out an urgent care clinic or bringing on a Medicare mental health centre, or to see a GP service in these regional areas jumping to sign up to bulk billing, these things really, really matter to those people. And they are a result of the historic investment that our government, the Albanese Labor government, has made into health services. Not to mention the reduction in their PBS scripts and all the other great developments that we've seen. We've seen a lot of expansion in our hospitals, a lot of capacity worked on there, which is really, like I say, really, really important in those regional areas. But then there's also the 20% reduction to student debt. That's enormous. The number of students I've met who've benefited from our approach to the university sector, who've benefited from free TAFE. There's 24,000 students who've benefited from free TAFE in South Australia alone. And when I talk to students in Port Lincoln who've spent their whole lives wanting to be nurses and now they have the chance, or talking to young people who want to get into a trade or who want to go and work on submarines out at Osborne, that they now have these opportunities. They have these opportunities across the board to undertake things that they couldn't previously afford. And to see that opportunity play out really is so delightful and so encouraging. And it really makes me so proud to be standing here as a member of the Albanese Labor government. But we've seen challenges as well, from the algal bloom to drought. These things have really impacted our communities. And I was particularly keen to see the changes that we've made in terms of the way we're working hand in hand with the Malinowskis government for a $30 million boost to the Farm Business Resilience Program and the Regional Drought Resilience Program, and a really important additional $1 billion into the Regional Investment Corporation, so that we can ensure that farmers can continue to access concessional lending, which is so important to them. Our regional areas really are the heart and soul of our communities, and to see how they're benefiting from the Albanese Labor government's policies is
Senator
excellent.
Grogan, your time's expired. Senator Scarr.
Deputy President, I'd like to pay my deep respects and congratulations to the graduating class of Goodna Special School in 2025. It was my absolute honour to attend their graduation ceremony earlier this month. I'd like to congratulate the class, all the members of the class, the staff, the PNC, all of the families for this momentous occasion. In particular, I'd like to congratulate the school captains, Jack Taylor and Marianne Takato, and also I'd like to congratulate Ozair Mahudin, who received the prestigious Milton Dick Award, named and donated by my good friend, the Speaker in the House of Representatives, which is a recognition of leadership and excellence that speaks volumes about his dedication and character. And in closing, I'd like to quote from the speech that the school captains gave, Jack and Marianne, because I think there's a paragraph we should all take heed of. Being school captains has been such an honour. We learned that being a leader isn't about having all the answers. It's about helping others, working as a team, and making sure no one is left behind. So congratulations to you, Jack and Marianne, for a great job as school captains, and I'd like to congratulate the whole graduating class of 2025 from Goodna Special School. Deputy President, we have a wonderful Kenyan community in my home state of Queensland, and Kenyans in Queensland Inc. has done fabulous work over the course of the last 12 months. They've held cultural festivals, they've reached out to Kenyan international students and provided assistance and support, and last month, or this month earlier, they held their annual gala and awards night dinner. And at this dinner, I was very moved to meet a lady called Dr. Diana Canoli, and Diana's brother Felix Kwame Ruma has passed away just recently in Queensland. And I want to quote to you from Diana's email to me. Quote, "In this time of loss, our family has been deeply supported by the Kenyans in Queensland community under the leadership of President Anthony Kamau. Their guidance, compassion and unwavering support throughout the administrative and coronial processes and through the arrangements following Felix's passing have been invaluable. The family wishes to place on record their sincere appreciation for the remarkable efforts and the spirit of community embodied by the KIQ." And I would like to say something about Diana's brother, Felix, who passed. He established a really special relationship with the Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire Council. And I want to quote to you some words from Mayor Bruce Simpson of the Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire Council. "Felix brought a sense of trust that's hard to measure, a rare gift in such a short window of acquaintance. His enthusiasm for uplifting the community, especially through empowering our youth with technology and artificial intelligence, was infectious. Already, Felix's legacy is creating new possibilities for our young people and elders alike. He resonated with our shared vision by this powerful example of self-determination and community building." End quote. So I'd like to acknowledge the contribution of the late Felix Kwame Ruma, and I'd also like to acknowledge the support with Kenyans in Queensland gave to Felix's sister, Diana. Deputy President, I was delighted to attend Lankan Fest 2025 in Melbourne on 16 November 2025. And this is a showcase of the best of Sri Lankan culture. And it was a wonderful, wonderful day. And I'd like to congratulate the President of the Organising Committee, President Dr. Demetha Demel, and all of his committee, all of the volunteers, all of the performers, everyone who contributed to this great day. And to think this day started, it's in its 10th year, it started when a group of people from our wonderful Sri Lankan Australian community got together in someone's lounge room in 2014. And the first festival was in 2015, and it's just grown and grown and grown. So congratulations to our wonderful Sri Lankan community in Melbourne for this festival. It did rain during the day, but I was told this is a blessing in Sri Lankan culture, just as our wonderful Sri Lankan community is a blessing for Australia.
Senator Hodgins-May.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. Across Australia, too many people, especially young people and older women, are being pushed into housing stress, couch surfing and homelessness. Housing is a human right. Your age, your income or your postcode should not determine whether or not you get a secure roof over your head. But the housing crisis didn't just happen. It is the result of political choices. For decades, governments, Labor and Liberal, have designed a system that delivers billions to big banks and property developers whilst locking out a whole generation from the opportunity for secure housing. We saw this clearly in Victoria with Labor's plan to bulldoze 44 public housing towers and hand over public land to private developers. And the human cost of these choices is simply devastating. Every year, nearly 40,000 children and young people in Australia have nowhere to live. 40,000. At the same time, women aged over 55 are the fastest growing cohort of people experiencing homelessness in Australia. In one of the richest countries in the world, this is nothing short of shameful. The Greens fought hard in the last Parliament and secured $3 billion in extra funding for public and community housing and an additional $500 million for urgent social housing upgrades. This was significant, but it's simply not enough. Young people are falling through the cracks, especially those leaving out of home care. At 18, many are effectively shown the door and left to fend for themselves. It's no wonder that so many of these young people end up homeless. Single, older women are among the most marginalised when it comes to safe, affordable and suitable housing. Lifelong disadvantages such as the gender pay gap, caring responsibilities and lower paid work leaves them vulnerable. Research shows older women, especially private renters, are disproportionately trapped in housing that is both unaffordable and poor quality. We must do better. That's why the Home Time campaign is so important. Since launching in 2024, more than 150 services and agencies have joined forces to end youth homelessness and tackle the barriers that stop young people, especially those leaving care, from finding stable housing. They're calling for dedicated, wraparound housing and support so young people can build their lives on solid ground. The Homestretch initiative, which pushes to extend formal care to 21, is another crucial reform. At the other end of life, Housing for the Aged Action Group provides critical support to older people through activism, services and advocacy. I've met with representatives from these groups and their message is clear. Young people and older women deserve stability, not a cliff edge. It is heartbreaking and infuriating to watch younger Australians and older Australians being pushed into homelessness when we have the resources to keep them safe. To Home Time, Homestretch, Housing for the Aged Action Group and all of those fighting for the right to housing, we thank you. Your work is vital and the Greens will keep fighting alongside you.
Senator O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Deputy President, and I rise to make a contribution about workplace relations, particularly with regard to Black Friday. This Friday marks the start of Black Friday weekend, and according to recent reports from the ABC, around 6 million Australians are expected to take part in a weekend of major markdowns and bulk purchasing incentives. Many will turn to online shopping to avoid the chaos at shopping centres. The online shopping realm presents as a desirable retail experience for many Australian consumers who'll manage to check off Christmas lists and even grocery shop from the comfort of their home this festive season. I do encourage them to think, though, about their local small businesses, see what they can do to support business in their own area. The online retailer has perhaps been most successful in promoting the convenience and cheap prices that consumers covet is Amazon. As a Goliath of the e-retail space, Amazon owns a substantial share of the online retail market in Australia. This isn't, in my view, something to celebrate. Instead, as we head into this festive season, we must pause and recognise the workers whose labour underpins every click, every parcel, every promise of convenience. Those workers are the ones who make this retail frenzy possible. While Black Friday is certainly an exciting event for many Australians, it's far less festive for Amazon distribution workers who will face immense pressure in an already stressful anti-worker environment. The environment of Amazon rids employees of their human and workers' rights. Amazon has intrusive surveillance practices. Amazon forces employees to work and live like the very machines that surround them. This week, the Transport Workers Union and the Shop Distributive and Allied Employees Association are campaigning to protect Australian jobs and businesses that fall victim to the exploitative and deplorable actions of Amazon. Today, I'm proud to stand in this chamber and support the SDA and the TWU and their push as part of a global movement to make Amazon pay. I note that in 2025, Amazon is continuing its globally disgraceful record of union busting, denying collective bargaining, and pursuing corporate arrogance. In Quebec, Amazon made its stance clear. Rather than negotiate a fair union arrangement for fair wages, fair working conditions for ordinary Canadians, it instead chose to close 7 warehouses, punishing more than 3,500 workers simply for standing together in solidarity. That will not wash in Australia. In Australia, Amazon, though, has employed similar tactics. They've routinely attempted to silence workers who raise concerns about their health and safety. They disregard issues raised by union members. And very, very significantly, they have refused to engage with workers seeking representation. And in doing so, in enacting these responses to workers' requests and conditions, Amazon is systematically denying its workers a voice. Equally alarming is Amazon's willingness to overstep legal and ethical boundaries in pursuit of intrusive and excessive surveillance practices, behaviour that governments are now taking notice of. In France, the National Data Regulator fined Amazon $57.4 million for an excessively intrusive monitoring system that tracked employees' scanner inactivity and productivity rates. So how can we trust Amazon? How can we even believe that they'll uphold the obligations that they've agreed to when they continuously mistreat their workers and overstep legal boundaries? We cannot allow Amazon's track of exploitation to go unchecked, particularly when it benefits from lucrative public contracts. That's why the Albanese Labor government's recent move to require agencies to assess the ethical conduct of bidding firms is a crucial step in the right direction. This reform sends a clear message. If you want to access public money, you have to meet the public's expectations. A fair day's work for a fair day's pay. People are not machines. They cannot be mechanised and they should not be intrusively observed and turned into machines. That is a dehumanising practice. Amazon needs to review its practices and fix a disgraceful record. This Parliament will no longer be witness to deplorable flaunting of legal obligations and imaginary ethical standards. The days of profits first, accountability later are over. I congratulate the SDA and the TWU
Senator
on their
O'Neill,
campaign.
Your time's expired. Senator Dean Smith.
I rise this evening to recognise a remarkable Western Australian, Ms Vion Geneve, and to congratulate her on her retirement as President of the Art Deco and Modernist Society of Western Australia, a role she has fulfilled with unmatched dedication and scholarship. This year marks a truly rare convergence of milestones, the grand century of Art Deco and Miss Geneve's own entry into her 10th decade, celebrating her 91st birthday on the 3rd of June. It is a fitting moment for her to pass the baton, for few have done more to champion and safeguard Western Australia's proud Art Deco and modernist heritage. Western Australia's Art Deco story is unique. The post-Depression recovery and the gold mining boom of the 1930s left Perth and regional Western Australia a rich architectural legacy. Yet the demolition blitz of the 1960s and subsequent decades wiped out much of St George's Terrace, including cinemas and beloved buildings that defined our city. It was in this climate that in 1987 Vion Geneve stepped forward. Her research, advocacy and resolve led to the formation of the Society and helped galvanise public awareness and WA's architectural heritage. Under her leadership, the Society became a founding member of the International Coalition of Art Deco Societies, hosted the 1991 World Congress on Art Deco, helped shape Western Australia's first heritage legislation, and worked with the National Trust to create the most extensive inventory of Art Deco structures in the state. The Society has saved iconic buildings, from the Raffles, Cottesloe and Swanbourne hotels, and today it leads the fight to preserve the Windsor Cinema in Nedlands. Ms Geneve's outstanding scholarship includes the acclaimed Picture Palaces of the Golden West, a definitive record of WA's golden age of cinema. Her retirement follows a triumphant autumn program, including discovery walks and an exhibition drawing over 3,500 visitors. Though stepping down as President, Ms Geneve will serve as President Emeritus, contributing to the much-loved Dear Decophile newsletter. Tonight, I would like to thank my good friend Vion for a lifetime of stewardship and scholarship to Western Australia's built and cultural heritage.
Senator David Burka.
Thank you, Deputy President. I'm going to read out the transcript of an interview between President Adyang of Nauru and Joanna Olsen of the Nauru Government Information Office. This interview was posted to Facebook on the 17th of February 2025 and has been translated by an independent translator. My thanks to the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre for providing this copy. Question. Good afternoon, Your Excellency. This news that Nauru has entered a new agreement with Australia where it states that we will be accepting non-citizens from Australia known as the NZYQ. Who are these NZYQ? Answer. It does not matter as much what they are called. What does matter is what type of people they are. The particular group Australia is asking us to take are not people of Australia. They are in Australia, they have committed a crime, served their time in jail, and are now out and living within the communities of Australia, now leading their lives not unlike any other person living in Australia. Now Australia has been trying to return them to their home countries and they have been unable to for multiple reasons. Because they are unable to, Nauru and Australia have joined into a partnership due to our history where we have been able to home people on our land like people who sought asylum or those who are refugees. To clarify, these people are not refugees. They are regular people, but their background and their history is that they have been to jail. These days they are free to roam around Australia, and while they are no longer under penalties, but they are not of that place, and despite Australia's preference to send them home, they are unable to. So that is what we have entered into. We will help Australia take these people and allow them to live amongst us. Question. Regarding this agreement, this is great for Australia as far as protecting their communities. We in Nauru, have we reached a point where we can take care of people like this? Answer. We have looked at every corner of this arrangement. This has been going on since last year. It's not like we slept and woke up and got asked something big. We have thought about it since last year that it is not unlike the RPC arrangement that we are still undergoing here at home. If we remember, the people that have come here under the RPC arrangement are not without their own history. They have come from war-torn areas. Some have taken lives, some have abused people, and when they have come here, they have not interfered with anything. They have just come here, they live their way. They want to just continue their lives because we are a country and a people that are peaceful. That is also our attitude at the moment. We say that these people that are coming, there are some that are just going to want to continue their lives and will want to build their lives up in a peaceful way, just like each and every one of us. The visa they have, how is it different? Question. The visa they have, how is it different to the one that we're offering to the RPC cohort? How long are they going to be in Nauru and what rules of their visa? Answer. When they are given the visa, it is clear to all of us that we have given them a place here. 35. If we say 30 years, then 30 years is what are given. Unless, of course, we, your government, find a way to move them around, for example, they get to go home. The problem now is Australia cannot return them home. These people are what you would refer to as stateless. Their homelands do not want them and they do not have a way to go home. And if over time we find a way to return them home, then of course they will not reach the 30 years, but the visa we're providing them to start is 30 years. It's the same as everyone we brought in during RPC. They can work, we also encourage them to work so they feel like they contribute to our community. Nothing will be stopping them. But they will have a 30-year visa rather than the shorter visas. That's the only difference. Otherwise, they're also subject to the laws of Nauru. If they break the laws of our home, they will follow our normal legal process, taking them to court, sending them to jail if needed, fining them if needed. We are anticipating that now we are talking, it is not that they are breaking the laws in Australia, but Australia does not want them because they are not from there. So we will take them for the time being. We are not anticipating that they are wanting to come here and break laws. They just want to continue their lives.
Senator Shoebridge, there is a few
President,
minutes left.
To continue, question, because the background of these people that they are saying have committed crimes, the safety concerns of the people of Nauru, what does the government have to say to ease their gut about the fact and the shock that they are living within their community? Answer, the first thing we have to remember is that these people have their time in jail. They have a history, yes, but they also have a present. And the present of these people now is that they are living within the people of Australia and are not committing crimes. Some of them are just enjoying their lives and continuing their lives, but they are not from here and Australia does not want them. And for some reason, some legal reasons, they cannot be deported. So we are the solution to them being moved from here. I did want to provide a solution, but to address our own, it's not that different from how we protected our community back when the refugees first came. And after we allowed them out of detention to settle within our community, they also had a history and we also have a history. There are some that have come out of jail here with their own histories. We weren't harmed and we won't be harmed. So of course, there are extra community safety arrangements that we will bring out to look after our community. Maybe, for example, and help them, NZYQ, a little with their movements and to ease the shock of the community. Because the biggest thing I see now is that there will be surprise people. And we have to remember that this is not the first time that we've let foreigners come to our home. And it will not be the first time we've accepted foreigners with backgrounds that are not 100% pristine. And we know how to handle arrangements like this, and we also know how to empower the lives of these people, and we know how to take care of them, and we get along just fine. And we hold that we will be fine. We will bring out a lot of things for this, and we'll welcome the input of the community if they want to give us their feedback on how to make them feel safe, more secure. They can make contact with their relevant members of Parliament and ministers to let us know. I've also sat with the opposition recently to give them all of the facts of this thing that we have entered, so they know what is true and what isn't true. The Australian media will have their own spin on it, but what I have to given you is what is true to all of us, to my knowledge. There are 3 people that will come first within days, maybe less than a week. We know their profile, what their names are, their backgrounds and their ages. And we have already prepared them a space. We have prepared the safety protocols to protect them and to protect us. We are not overwhelmed because we have already gone through these things. This is not new here. The only new thing is they are not refugees. Question, if the 30-year ends and we have not resettled them in another country, what is Nauru and Australia's plan? Answer, well, I guess in 30 years' time there will have to be meetings between the government of Nauru and the government of Australia and what we're going to do about these people. But that's a long way into the future. I do trust, however, that maybe before then, we will little by little be able to return these people home if they want that. I also anticipate that these people will have family from Australia. They will want to visit them here, and we're not closed off to that. Just like when the refugees were here, we allowed their families to visit them here. We opened our arms to them, and we'll do that with these people also. Deputy President, I want to thank my colleague Senator Pocock, and I want to thank the ASRC for joining with me tonight to tell the truth about this interview, because this is the interview that the government has refused to produce. This is the interpretation. This is an interpretation, an accredited interpretation of the interview that President Adiang gave when the announcement came, not from our own minister, but the announcement leaked out from Nauru about a $2.5 billion secret deal. And this government has been trying to keep this secret from the Australian people, refusing to produce their own interpretation, refusing to tell the Australian people what the Nauruan president said. So I know that Senator Pocock and I have read it out in somewhat of a rush, but we did it because we wouldn't be certain to get it on the record in the time that we had available. And it should have been the government that told the Australian people of this. It should have been the government that had the decency to step forward and be honest with the Australian people about what the Nauruan president said. And there's reasons why, no doubt, the government wanted to hide this. Because President Adiang wrongly makes the statement, no doubt on advice from the Australian government, that none of the NZYQ cohort are refugees. Plainly wrong. Now, did the government tell them that? Did our government mislead the Nauruan government? Do they adhere to what the Nauruan president said about these people not being refugees? None of them refugees. And they're probably also embarrassed by the fact that President Adiang has made it very clear he wants these people to return from the country they came from. We know that they have fled from persecution.